Make sure my microphone is on. What is going on, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints? Beautiful, blasphemous bastards. Good morning. How are y'all doing? This is something that I want to do. I'm going to hopefully do it consistently on my days off. We already see Jill in the side chat giving me some shit about being up so early. I'm always up early. So I actually slept in today till about 4 in the morning. But usually I'm up at about 2 in the morning. It's my sleep schedule for my work schedule. And I usually don't get off of it on my days off. Now, it looks like you're hearing me. I'm trying to keep the microphone away from my face a little bit. It's been covering my face. With the state of my teeth, I don't think that that's a very bad thing. I get a lot of shit from my teeth. I take care of my teeth. It's just bad gum genetics. I've got a hard decision to make with my teeth coming up. You might see me streaming for a couple months, toothless. I'll be miserly, but I'll probably feel a lot better about myself when I make that decision. So, how are y'all doing this morning? So, as I predicted yesterday, I think we see it already playing out in my side chat. Jill is very, very, very anxious to talk about this school shooting that we had yesterday. He had his chance yesterday to come in. He chose not to. I'll probably be having a room later. I haven't decided yet. If I decide early enough, I'll get it up. It's just gonna really depend on what's going on later. I would really like to, maybe have a room 4 to 8, but it's gonna really depend on what my afternoon is looking like. This morning, I kind of wanted to offer a glimmer of hope. Yesterday was a pretty sad day. Right, children are dead. It was a horrific act. I still not really trusting what I'm hearing. But I don't want to be somebody that politicizes it, because we're going to have plenty of that coming up. I want to offer a glimmer of hope in these dark times this morning as I share my coffee with you guys. How are y'all doing? Yeah, 6 days till kickoff. I'm excited. I'm really excited for my Detroit Lions this year. Good morning, Missing Mod. Good morning, Joe. One thing that I'm going to try to be better at is standing firm in my advocacy, but doing it in my own way. And I think we'll be getting into that as we get into what I want to show today. And hopefully, I don't have too much hopes for this channel, right? Last couple days I've been saying, I drank this channel into obscurity, and that's true. I did. When I started drinking on streams, it damaged my reputation in the community more than anything. But what damaged my channel came before that, or maybe even during that, and it was something different. It was me talking to Matt Powell, and especially I think the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to YouTube, especially after they had changed their YouTube policy and really started emphasizing that if you're covering hate speech, then it's your hate speech. It's not just because I'm covering it and I'm refuting it, doesn't separate anymore, and now becomes my hate speech. And the third time I talked to Misha Popoff really seemed to be, for YouTube, the final straw. And that's when I was demonetized. And once you're demonetized as a channel, you're pretty much in YouTube algorithm hell. And I have been since. Now, I could have cleaned up all of the former content, kind of like I have done, because I've just kind of pretty much blocked all of my old content. One of these days I'm going to go through, get the best of that old content, and put it into a big giant playlist. But a lot of that content is just straight garbage, because I was a raging alcoholic full of rage and animosity. And it really, at first it was the appeal of the Raging Atheist. Like, hey, here's this normal dude, normal intellect, lots of anger. And that anger is probably, felt by a lot of people. Right. And it became here's this drunken buffoon who can't represent anything correctly, who has been influenced by woke scolds and is too weak to really make his own decisions, stand up for what he truly believes in, which is conversation, right? And so while I don't have too much hopes for this channel, I'm going to utilize this channel as my personal vlog to get my shit out, to really experiment with what I want to do on YouTube. And eventually I will be making a main channel starting from scratch that hopefully is going to be a better representation of the person that I've always been, but I was just really too drunk to express that person accurately. And it's really easy to see that now that I'm sober, and I've been sober a couple years. I think I don't keep track of it, but I think I'm coming up on 2 years, if not over 2 years without a drink. I've given up flower weed. I only smoke my carts now, and I have full intentions to get rid of this. I gave up cigarettes. I only smoke my vapes now, and I have full intentions to get rid of this. I want to be a healthy person. And after my nervous breakdown, I determined I want to become physically healthy, but more importantly, I needed to really work on my mental health. And I have done that despite all of my struggles. If you're on Facebook, you've seen my struggles, especially these past couple years. And one of these days, I might really decide to go in depth to the toxic family that I'm just kind of surrounded by. And the toxicity of the last year and a half especially, and why I really just haven't been around during this evolution of myself as I've been sober and as I've lost all the weight that I had gained and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of my intentions with this channel and with YouTube. And especially now in these times, our advocacy needs to be firm, but at the same time, I really believe we need to have an extremely wide tent. And that's going to be accepting people that have very different views but are willing to fight fascism until fascism is defeated, and then we can look at other problems again. But for right now, it's like we've got to come together. And that's what I want to do today, is start maybe offering a glimmer of hope. What is the solution to this? And the solution is, and always has been, our youth, our young people. They're the ones that's really going to be carrying this battle forward. And they're the ones that's going to be vital to winning the battle that we're going to be fighting. Especially after yesterday, especially after we already see the reaction and how this conversation about a school shooting is going to be a very different conversation. So I want to offer a glimmer of hope, and that glimmer of hope is our youth. Now, you've probably all seen the Charlie Kirk versus the Cambridge students. I was considering just going through the whole thing, but I want to focus on one person. Her name is Tilly. She is a brand new content creator. Probably a decision she made after she went viral for this conversation, right? So I really want to focus on something positive this morning as I share my coffee with you guys. And if you haven't seen this, then you go watch the whole thing, because this is what happens when you bring propaganda to the light of academia. And we need strong, intelligent young people to be the face of the battle we are about to fight. You don't need 48-year-old Nakasuchi with his rotting teeth as the face, and which I would never be, but we need the youth, because the youth is truly where this battle is going to be fought. So I want to get into this. We're going to watch this, and then we're going to watch an interview that Rationality Rules had with Tilly that he released yesterday, and I watched before I went to bed, and it's a strong interview. It's a great interview. I have both of their links in the description. The link for Rationality Rules, who I had unsubscribed to back in my woke skull days during his controversies with trans sports. And Steven, it seems from what I have watched the last few weeks, because I've been watching his dissections of debates, it seems like he's really come a long way on his advocacy, and I'm proud of him. I'm proud of what I see from him. So with confidence and pride, I can say you should go and subscribe to Rationality Rules, especially if you had unsubscribed from him so long ago. Now, I could be completely way off on it, but from what I've seen, I think he's come a long way. Now, Tilly is a brand new content creator. She just put out her first video yesterday, which I watched that as well. I thought it was a great video. I think she is going to be a great champion of liberal democracy. So if you haven't met her yet, I'm glad that I can be the one to introduce you to her, but I'm pretty sure you've probably seen the viral clips of her conversation with Charlie Kirk. I thought about showing Rationality Rules breakdown of this, but instead I just decided to show the actual conversation or that she had with Charlie, and then we'll go to Steven talking with her about this conversation. So this is the glimmer of hope. This is our glimmer of hope, that people like this exist. And I really don't think fascism, even if it has its immediate victories, will be able to stand in the face of it. So without further ado, let's share our coffee together and get this thing started. Hopefully you can hear it. I did change some things, so let me know if you can't.
So I'm a feminist. My question is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes. An adult human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
Can a woman have a prostate? Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a biological reality, but it's also social experience, right? So I don't...
Yeah, it's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So women can have prostates. Got it. Okay.
All right, so... And as you're going to find out as Steven talks with Tilly later, she's prepared for Charlie Kirk because she understands Charlie Kirk. She's seen enough of his content to understand him. And she's pretty much going to predict what he does perfectly through this whole exchange. Now, in all the times that I've talked to people, I've only really done that once. And I've done that with our dear friend Jill in the side chat, who even himself has come to admit that I just crushed him in that debate. But I had a debate with Jill. I knew everything that he was going to say. I prepared for everything that he was going to say, and it was beautiful. And I was only able to do that one time. So it's a very hard thing to do. And the fact that she was able to do it so gracefully and so perfectly, I think really speaks to her level of intelligence.
So you're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
And what's up, Maynard?
Yes, men also experience harms from patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt. Right? So are we understanding that there are, patterns of power? So I would also fight for the rights of men as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure. You think women are happy?
Oh, now he's going back on it. I actually did hear you admit it several times, but whatever, bro. And I didn't rage quit that debate. I don't know what the fuck you're talking. You're thinking about a different debate. I still have it on the channel. I'll make sure to make it part of that playlist. I'll make sure it's back on the channel just for you, Jill.
Happier than they were 40 years ago?
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic.
I'm going to actually rewind this because Jill is kind of distracting me. Yeah, you're definitely thinking of a different one because I can't kick you off of a channel I don't own, Jill. I'm talking about the debate we had on Praise's channel, my dude, about slavery. Yeah. I'll make sure to put it back up, but we're going to go back a little bit because he's done distracting me, and I shouldn't allow that. That's on me.
Patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt. Right? So are we understanding that there are, patterns of power? So I would also fight for the rights of men as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure. You think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
So immediately, just avoiding anything that she's saying, and she's already just brutalizing this man. Doing the conventional Charlie Kirk tactics, pretty much just pivot to the next thing, to the next hot social talking point, right? And she's prepared for all of that. This is a brilliant takedown of this man. And this is why, honestly, I can look at it and I can say, I'm not the best debater to do these things. When you compare it to somebody who is, captain of her debate team, I can't quite remember, but she's pretty much lead of the debate team for Cambridge. This is a professional debater, and she understands how it needs to be done. And I'm glad that I became aware of her so early in her career that I can honestly say, yeah, I was one of the first, because I think she has a bright future ahead of her.
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations. So, for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen in countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
And you'll hear her talk about the decisions she made and why she went with what she just said there. There are deliberate reasons and there are deliberate decisions you need to be able to make in these types of debates to really not just, I think, hammer home with the people that already agree with you, but really, if you want to have a chance of grabbing some of those people that are agreeing with him, right? The way I went about it, especially at first, when the gimmick really seemed to be working, can be useful and can be useful for clickbait, right? Like raging atheist starts raging on somebody. That can be good for a certain demographic of people that already agree with you and feel some of their own pent up anger and animosity, right? So, and that can be valuable. But it can also be, harmful to the overall cause. So to have somebody like her and to have several hundred people like her just in this audience, these are, Cambridge, Ivy League of Ivy League, these are some of the brightest people in the world, brightest young people in the world. This is the future. This is how we defeat fascism. People like this, understanding truth, understanding how to communicate that truth in a very effective manner. And let's not lie, it also takes charisma. It takes personality. You know, you've got to be able to draw people to you. And I really see those components in this young person here.
That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny. So, no, hold on a second. Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
I think that
Forget
encourages...
complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why is that?
I think that even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other explanations.
Of course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us, where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up, and we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control, and all of a sudden women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago.
And just for anybody, you know, watching the playback, anybody unfamiliar with Jill, and you're like, you're watching the stream and you're like, who is this Jill guy? And you're like even looking at the little bit of a chat that I have popping up on the stream, and you're like, who is he talking to? I don't see a Jill. Jill is rebuke and reprove.
And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women that we should respect, and that deep down a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it and we should support it, and we should say it means nothing if you're going to go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone.
I think I would bring 2 points to that. The first one is just really simple, which is that you can ascribe liberalism all you want as the cause of the unhappiness. I would argue something else. I would say that it's certain economic policy that has very little to do with the social acceptance of alternative lifestyles. I would say that we can recognise that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which causes all kinds of social ills, a lack of social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth, monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritise social health either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms, because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it, do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but I think there are certain
and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Tearing down statues.
And yes, and she's gonna do it for me, but like that is like one of the most ridiculous comparisons I have ever heard in my life. Like, what does that have to do with anything? And these are statistics that I would like to look into, because I don't know. I think that women that are married might be more pressured to be dishonest about their answers in surveys like these. There could be fear that the husband might find out about a wife's dissatisfaction, for instance. So, yeah, like just an understanding of statistics and how these surveys are conducted is really nice, right? And the thing about Charlie is he's a very smart dude, and he does understand these things. He's just a bad faith actor.
Choose correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of.
Again, it's like, it's a little bit of a one-liner. The happy and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our...
Like, seriously, you rebuke and reprove. Jesus is Lord, my dude. I'm offering a glimmer of hope this morning. If you want to bring your despair, we can do that later. Be around later. I'll try to make it about 4 to 8. You're free to come in. We'll see how long you last with your hate. I can only take so much hatred. I can only take, like, I'm a Taoist. I'm a Buddhist. I like calm. So if we can talk calm without hate and have a clash of ideas, it'll work out well. Unfortunately, it has never happened with you. This morning, my dude, take a sip of your coffee and appreciate a young, white, I know you would really appreciate the white part, Jill. Brilliant, articulate woman. We all know you have issues with women. You don't like to speak to them. They need to know their place. But surely you can appreciate a young, vibrant woman, Jill. So chill, my man. Chill. Drink some coffee. Maybe smoke, take a couple hits off the bong. Chill the fuck out. Bro.
Country all throughout a single summer. But as a side note, you would
Marty?
agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making. So I don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether...
Boom! So she just let him go on and on and on about happiness metrics, right? And then just slapped him in the face with it. You don't believe in any of this, Charlie. If you truly believed in happiness, you'd be all for gay people just living out their lives happy. You ain't for happiness. You're for theocracy.
Whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous, I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to measure?
You would say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like, but hold on. I mean, like, that's...
You know, and the joke is true. That's the thing. That's how statistics works. You know, like, that's how statistics works. That's how these surveys work. And you have to be aware of that, right? So, you know, this happened with my brother, you know, and my brother really revealed, like, one of his core issues with me, and that is I can be poor, I can have nothing, and he would still come downstairs and I'd be on my computer playing a video game or listening to something like this, and I'd have a smile on my face and I'd be content, right? To where he has everything. The great job, the great house, the great cars, and he is miserable. And he told me that once, I think in a moment of his own clarity, in the midst of a 1.5 year war that we had. And I can't remember how I was going to correlate those two, but I think it stands, right? Damn weed in the morning.
An important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best.
Y'all know me. This is like just
in the world.
This is
and
not.
Yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here. Because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs. And the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just, like, you know, connecting.
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it. Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think...
Yeah, and so she tied it back for me, so thank you, Tilly. And that's how surveys work, right? Like, so, you know, just because I check, yeah, I'm happy on a box, doesn't really tell you anything about the confines of my life, right? Just because I'm happy doesn't mean I'm taken care of. Just because I'm happy doesn't mean I'm not abused, right? Abuse can be normalized. Abuse can be something that you become used to. Abuse can be something that you might even look forward to sometimes. because it's psychological warfare. It's not just physical abuse. It's abuse of the mind.
Would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer.
No, again, so I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like, I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually have
agree on
agreement.
many things.
And we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right? We totally agree.
I think that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians into the UK either.
Hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny. Hold on. Can you show me what would your example, because I have 50, of a single Christian country that you would say mistreats women right now?
America.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We had a female woman vice president. We had a female vice president, a female speaker of the House. Women earn more than men in America.
This girl is good, y'all.
In Rwanda, female representation in government supersedes the UK by quite a lot. Did women get treated better in Rwanda?
Okay, I might be super off this. Like, is Rwanda Islamic? Like, I'm not totally sure. I don't think it is. Is it? Like, I don't know, actually. It's not. So, again, we were just talking about Islam. It's a little bit of a side note. But you must be morally clear, because you brought up female genital mutilation, which is a teaching of the Islamic faith. But as a side note, like, again, this is very important, which is, I'm not here to require you to do anything or not. I'm making a simple observation, which is objectively true regardless. The women of the West are miserable, and they're miserable for a reason, because we've told them to suppress how they are made by God.
Really shouldn't be smoking all this
pursue
shit with
something
bronchitis.
else, and get a bunch of trinkets and get a bunch of promotions, and they end up at 38 years old with a big flat in London, and they're miserable. And we should tell them to stop freezing their eggs and start finding their partner earlier and have lots of babies.
Yeah, okay, I think I'd bring two just final points to this. First one is just really intuitive, right? Which is that if you actually care about women's happiness, then the solution is to structurally support them. That means universal childcare, shared legally enforceable parental leave, and in Nordic countries where women have high workforce participation and also some state support, they report higher life satisfaction than in more conservative countries, including America. So if your metric is happiness,
just use satisfaction
equality
surveys. You just told me they're
matters.
BS.
So are satisfaction surveys bullshit or not? Because you told me they're bullshit.
Do you acknowledge satisfaction?
See, so she already destroyed him when it comes to that. He doesn't really believe in the happiness matrix or the satisfaction metrics, right? But he doesn't get that she's once again just throwing his own argument back in his own face. And I think Charlie Kirk doesn't get that a lot, even though he does go around campus to campus talking to college students here in America. But when you're creating the setting of those events, you get to pick and choose who you get to talk to, right? And some people just make it apparent, i.e. the raging atheists, that they can just be rather irrational in their emotions sometimes, right? And it becomes fairly easy to pick and choose. I can't remember the dude's name, but he does this podcast, and he'll bring in like OnlyFans models and like people off the streets, women off the streets that he finds that he can find to have kind of like the least based feminist ideology, in a manner to put it, like, and put those people on blast on his podcast just so he can scream a certain illusion about what feminism is. And we saw that earlier in this exchange with Tilly here, when he asked her, what you stand for men's rights as well, which is just a basic common core of actual feminism, right? Like with feminism, you can't have female rights if you don't have equal male rights. And consistency would say if you're demanding rights for one, you would demand the equal rights for the other, or how can you demand them for yourself? That's just a flat out part of feminism. And but Charlie, who probably does understand that, he is one of the main people that have taken a speakerphone to the narrative that it isn't that feminists don't care about men, that in fact feminists want to take over the world from men, which is not the case at all.
Surveys or not? You just told me that they're BS. Do you think they're objective? We can use that as data?
I don't think that
yes or no?
It is the only sole data set, but it is a data set that necessarily
you told me they're so flawed and
What's
you
up,
self-report.
KCA?
Okay, by the macro self-satisfaction data, I am correct. And you are right. When you have paid family
Good
leave,
morning, Robin.
you are happier. I'm actually a proponent of that. At Turning Point USA, we pay for 6 months when somebody has a child. I think there's a lot of agreement we can have on that. We need to encourage having more children. I think the Hungarian child policy is phenomenal. We should look at that, because the greatest thing that is plaguing the West is we're not having enough kids. And it's not just bad because we won't have a future. It's also bad because the present is awfully miserable for too many women as well.
Okay, in which case I think we get...
Do I start bringing this to a close, please?
Okay, I think just one final thing, which is that in which case we get to a really interesting argument about what parts of womanhood can be demarcated to the social and what kinds of womanhood can be demarcated to biological. So, for example, my anatomy is demarcated to the biological, but the fact that I might potentially be a better nurturer than a man, I would demarcate that to the social, you might demarcate that to the biological, in which case we have differing moral scales of value. I would ask why we should necessarily prioritize your moral scale of value, which prioritizes things like the birth rate, when in actual fact there are various other moral scales of value. And if you yourself are a free market American, why is it the case that you would not, like the previous speaker noted,
I've already answered
extend personal freedoms towards all spheres, including a private sphere?
I believe in absolute truth claims, and it's absolutely wrong and bad when a society stops having kids to replace their own population. And then you have to import the third world, and you become the third world. It's bad.
I disagree, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
She crushed him. And she wasn't the only one. Like, again, I seriously thought about showing just this entire thing, because this entire thing was a masterclass on how to crush Charlie Kirk. Like, I'm surprised he put this on. I'm watching, this is his, like, from his channel, right? Like, I'm surprised he's got this on there, because I'd be fucking embarrassed. But I put it on too, right? Like, I've always shown my L's. I've never ran away from them, no matter what Jill might say in the side chat, right? I've never ran away from my L's. I've lost, like, without a doubt, in my brain, 3 debates. One was a physics debate that I had no business being in. I was a fill-in for James on Modern Day Debate. I thought that I could cram in 3 days all of physics, and brutally wrong. That was a disaster. Trying to read shit straight from my fucking notes, right? Like, it was a disaster. It was bad. The Matt Powell debate that I did not go to debate, and yeah, like, by any understanding of what a debate is, he literally brutalized me in that debate because I refused to talk evolution with the bigot, right? Like, I just refused to do it. I came to an evolution debate and didn't talk evolution, lost that debate. And there was one other I can't think of that I think, like, yeah, like, I just really wasn't prepared for this particular bullshit. And then there's like 9 or 10 debates that I think that I won, even though, like, somebody else would have won it far better than I did, right? Like, I don't disagree with Jill in the side chat that I'm not a debater. I'm just not. I'm a normal dude with normal intellect. I like to read. I'm well read, you know, but yeah, most of that reading is like fantasy novels. Like right now, I'm in the middle of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and if you're a fantasy fan and you've never read Malazan, it's really, really hard to start. You're gonna have to get to about book 4, even though books 1 through 3 are brilliant, man, just brilliant. It's very different, and it's hardcore, and it's the best shit you'll ever fucking read. I guarantee it. If you just make it to that book 4, yo, you're gonna be like, knock, you was right. Oh my god. So what Malazan Book of the Fallen is, for you D&D fans out there, is there's 2 different writers. Steven Erikson is the author of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and another guy, I can't remember his name, but it's basically their D&D game that they ran for like 10 years, part-time, when like Steven was homeless living in a tent, right? And Malazan was their D&D world. And it is, and most people agree, most fantasy readers agree, the greatest fantasy series ever fucking written. But you got to make it to book 4, and it's fucking hard. And then once you make it to book 4, you're going to really want to go back and start back at book 1 now that you understand. You know, you're really going to want to do that. but that's like the majority of my reading. Now, I read a lot. I read a lot of vast range of things. But that's the majority of my reading, right? So I think I've always been fairly apparent about that. I'm an avid book reader. It started with Stephen King in the 7th grade. I went to the school library because I had to pick out a book for a stupid book report, and I wasn't happy about it. Even though by that time I was already writing stories, I hated reading. I hated it. Couldn't stand the thought of it. Which, if you aspire to be a writer, is about the worst trait you can have, right? So, went to the school library, picked out just a random book, and it happened to be Stephen King's Eyes of the Dragon, which was a fantasy book, one of his few fantasy books. You can argue The Dark Tower, especially the first couple of books, is just pure hardcore fantasy / Western, and then it just becomes the brilliance of Stephen King. But that book, I read it and I fell in love with reading, and I've read thousands upon thousands of books, but I'm just a normal dude with a normal dude's intellect and a lot of emotional shit that I've been kind of really taking care of over the last couple of years, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm pretty proud that I was able to recognize that this person right here, Tilly, is brilliant, and she's the future. She is, and people like her, whether they be young or old. Those are the glimmers of hope we have to find now. They are the glimmer of hope. They have to be what we hold on to in our darkest times, because I truly believe really dark times are coming. So now I want to get over to the conversation Rationality Rules had with Tilly about this conversation. I watched this last night before I went to bed, and it's a phenomenal conversation. And these are two young, phenomenal intellects. And we're going to need intelligence to combat fascism. We need to be able to reach the youth and make them see what is happening, what they're becoming here in America. So without further ado, let's get back into it.
Tilly Middlehurst, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Charlie Kirk recently came over to Cambridge to debate students, as he often does, and he gets to pwn them and own them and publish them on his channel. And he didn't get what he was hoping for, because at Cambridge there was lots of students, one of them being yourself, who was prepared, very prepared.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's a little bit of a one-liner.
And so the situation was essentially watching him have a bad time and then move on to the next person and have a bad time. And because of his performance not going so well, there's been lots of clips going viral, lots of people covering the content, including myself. And although lots of the students did well, your performance in particular is one of the ones that people have focused on, with just widespread praise, essentially, including from myself. And although I've done an analysis of the exchange that you had, which is completely external, it's what I think was going on, here we have the incredible opportunity to get inside your mind, to understand, how was you so prepared? How did you have these notes in front of you? He brought up certain data and you were like, boom, here's my notes, here's the refutation. And so maybe there's something you can teach us with how to interact with conservative figures like him, who do very well in that limelight normally, but it went so catastrophic in Cambridge. And so my first question really is, when you decided, I'm going to go and have this chat, have this exchange with Charlie Kirk, did you have a goal in mind?
I hate ads with a passion. They are demon spawn.
I think one of the issues that the left tends to have is that the left are more likely to lean academic in some capacity. So the left are more likely to have attended university. You have a lot of left-wing university professors. That obviously does feed into the idea of left-wing indoctrination camps being universities, right? I obviously think universities are sites of positive change, and that's not just coming from me as a leftist. It's because I do believe in certain norms about free speech and about platforming certain voices that are important to platform, whether or not they're conservative. And one of the reasons for that is because I think that things like debating chambers are really important context within which you can challenge ideas that have become dangerous to some extent. I think Charlie Kirk's ideas are dangerous. And so my goal was to essentially say, academics need to come to the forefront of public life at the moment. I'm not necessarily a fully fleshed out academic because I'm still in the course of my undergraduate study.
And what she just said there is just like, it's kind of what I tried to articulate so badly and drunkenly before. It's like, we can't stop talking to these people just because they have shit about them that we despise, right? Like, we have to talk to these people, and we have to talk to these people with our best minds. like with actual true academia, not raging atheist and his bullshit, right? Like, and I'm not just talking about raging atheist. Significant damage has been done if fascism can do what it's take over this quickly. Like, so what she's saying there is what I truly like want to epitomize as I come back and try to do this thing again, is that we cannot run away from conversation. And if we find ourselves hitting a brick wall in those conversations, it is then our responsibility to make sure when we hit that brick wall again, we have a sledgehammer. Right? Like, you can make mistakes. You're gonna. Like, I'm going to, if I'm going to get back in this thing. But I've got to be equally committed to finding out why I made that mistake. And that's always a lack of knowledge. And that's why we need true academia that has the knowledge not to run away from this anymore. And that's why I wanted to show this glimmer of hope this morning, because that's pretty much going to be the gist of this entire nearly hour-long conversation. This woman is a beautiful, young, vibrant future. And if you watch that Cambridge exchange, and I'm sure if Charlie Kirk actually fucked up and put himself in that situation to where he's not controlling these college environments that he's entering, that would happen time and time again, that we do have a fucking hope. And that is that there are people that are educating themselves to combat this shit better than we can ourselves. And we have to let them do it. That has to be like, we have to find some humbleness, right? And like she's going to point out, they're going to have to find a backbone. Speaking of academia,
imagine if my Cambridge supervisor stood in front of Charlie Kirk, what would he say and how would that interaction go? And so that was what I wanted to channel. That was the goal.
Is it like you've been watching and seeing that a lot of the intellectuals won't actually participate with people like Charlie, and you're thinking, this isn't actually going well. We do need people to be able to stand up there and play the rhetoric game, to actually get involved, to actually show the refutation so the world can see it.
Yeah, I think for academics, it's kind of a case of school's out for them. They need to leave their echo chambers. They need to enter the world of, dangerous, divisive politics. They need to kind of get their hands dirty a little bit and debate with figures who are not academics and not intellectuals in any capacity, because that juxtaposition in and of itself is a powerful move.
It is. Do you think that the academics are prepared for those kinds of discourse?
It kind of blows me away, like human beings, like these two people
an intellectual argument. It's a very rigid, set, analytical
and it gives
framework.
me hope for humanity.
But when you're having a conversation with someone like Charlie, the dynamics are different. Rhetoric is more important. Winning the audience is more important. Do you think they're necessarily prepared for that, or is that a different mindset that you need?
I mean, you'd be surprised with some of the charisma that I have seen just among some of my lecturers. I think that when you imagine an academic, it's like an imaginary that doesn't necessarily manifest itself in reality. So, for example, when you have people like Charlie Kirk, what they will try and do is embody some kind of stereotypical element of what it means to be an intellectual. So he'll don a suit and he will say things like deoxo, whatever, the full word for DNA. He will say that instead of just DNA, which nobody actually says.
If you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid.
And he'll say things like, oh, John Locke said liberty is not licensed. And Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem.
Of Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists.
I mean, first of all, this is an incredibly outdated way to understand anything at all. He acts as if these ideas are like revolutionary and new and dangerous. So in one sense, you have like the idea of an academic doesn't actually translate into what an academic means. So, and Charlie Kirk isn't the only example. You have Jordan Peterson, who's excellent at this, which is like, this is an older white guy who's wearing tweed, and he's saying, what do you mean by believe? What do you mean by God? Like, let's get into the semantics of what our words, like what the language construction behind each thing means. And it's like that's not real. That's fake. It's in your imagination, and academics can have a lot of disdain for that, and they decide to push it away instead of saying, here's what an academic actually looks like. It's someone who overwhelmingly is more likely to tell the truth, who is well researched, who has data-backed understandings of reality, and who does have a little bit of charisma. Like if you have to capture the minds of students all day long, many of whom don't necessarily want to be there. That's something that requires some talent.
It sounds like what you're saying is that in the absence.
See, and she just laid it out like perfectly. Like, you know, academia tends to retreat because it feels like society leaves them behind. Academia and science, and these are the great foundations of innovation in a society, but often it lacks the glamour of Hollywood or hip hop stardom or NBA stardom. You know, like it doesn't have that. So it could feel like society leaves you behind. But when society's entering its darkest times, these are the people that we truly need to really come out in the forefront and articulate these things and not be afraid to talk to people that are not going to understand them. Because it takes repetition. Like, the one thing that we should learn from Donald Trump is that if you hammer home a message, it'll stick. So we have to make sure that message is right. And we need academia to stop retreating like she's articulating here. We need them to be the Dr. Joshes of the world. We need them to step out and start really speaking. Because we might not have much time left. We don't have much time left.
Of them putting themselves in that limelight, of sinking that low, let's say, they've allowed a co-op of what their image is to be dictated by their enemies.
Yeah.
So they're able to say, these are like, you know, people that they're always getting semantic and they're fixated on sociology and gender, or like they can just paint them in a certain way. Whereas if they actually got into the limelight, you would see the kind of situations which we saw just with the students. And that is here's the facts, like, let's go, you know? So like, it's a matter of, it sounds like you haven't seen enough of that. So you thought, you know what, I'll go do it. So you were very clearly prepared, like so prepared that when Charlie was seeing that you were bringing up refutations immediately, he was going, can you just do it without looking at your phone?
And so without reading your phone and just like, you know, connecting.
Because he would like bring up some statistics about like representation of women, and you would immediately just go, right, here's the stats. Right in front of you. Incredible preparation. At least it looks like it from an outsider's point of view, including myself. And I'm wondering what part of your preparation turned out to be the most valuable thing that you did? And is there anything in particular that you didn't prepare yourself for and had to act on the fly?
I mean, the first thing to say is I wouldn't classify that as incredibly prepared. I checked my emails about 12 hours before going into the debate and saw that I'd been chosen to debate him. I was already familiar with his content, and therefore I felt it was very easy to predict what he was going to say, because one of the characteristics of conservative figureheads is that they are repetitive with their rhetoric so that it can be disseminated in a really effective way among huge groups of people. Because if you think about it, like even Zohran Mamdani on the left did this really well. He was like, fast and free buses, like cooperative grocery stores. Like, I'm an English person who doesn't particularly care about what's going on in New York to the same extent that people who have a stake in New York would care about it, except I knew Zohran Mamdani's slogans off by heart because he was repetitive and he was efficient with it. So it was something that was quite easy to predict if you're familiar with that content like previously. So I didn't particularly have like tons of time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had notes, right? I would have just memorized it so that I could look as if I was on the same intellectual playing field as him, so that I didn't look like I had some kind of crutch. So, but I was prepared in the sense of I knew what he was going to say, and I had thought through my responses, and luckily he said everything that I predicted he would say.
And you know, like often true charisma, true it factor is the ability to do what she just did there. Sell yourself short. Show some humbleness. Because she was extremely well prepared, right? Extremely well prepared. You have to be, if you know where your opponent's going to lead you, and you can allow them to lead you there because you're prepared to refute where they're going, right? That is beyond prepared. Whether your notes are on your phone or on paper, but and the point she's making is going to play out. Like, it is true, be aware of those optics, because the right are bad faith actors. So they're going to point at that phone, and some not in bad faith, as they'll explain, but they're going to point at that phone. Oh, that's a crutch. No, those are notes. It's just, new generation, new technology.
And is it simply that you are ingrained in conservative mindsets, so you were prepared to go, I know what their talking points are, so I've already equipped myself with, he's going to bring up like suicide rates with women, or he's going to like bring up, this or this, and so that means
Morning,
that you
Dwayne
almost
Burke.
had a lot of the preparation there.
We'll go back just a little bit so we don't miss the question. Oh yeah, we're drawing all the old folks. What's up, Dwayne Burke? Good to see you. Smokey Saint. Anybody else new? Not that I'm seeing. Yeah, time differences suck. And I do, like, I could have started streaming if I'd have woke up like normal. I did stay up late watching this last night. I could have probably started streaming about 3 a.m. And that's something that I'm going to be trying to do on my days off. If I can keep it down and not wake the whole house up, is have these morning with Knox streams again. I'm always my brightest in the morning, usually, especially now that I'm not hungover in the mornings. I kind of like cringe inwardly every time I think about like all those morning shows I used to do with Andrew and I can't remember the other guy's name. That's stupid. Chris, Andrew and Chris, and all the morning shows I would do on my show, and just how fucking hungover I would be. I cringe inwardly. I truly do.
Simply that you are ingrained in conservative mindsets, so you were prepared to go, I know what their talking points are, so I've already equipped myself with, he's going to bring up like suicide rates with women, or he's going to like bring up, this or this. And so that means that you almost had a lot of the preparation there, because you are someone you associate with the back and forth. You know what their cards are, and as you said, they're very predictable. Like with Charlie, it was so predictable that as soon as you mentioned feminism, he was just like, "What is a woman?" Like he's got to hide it better, in my opinion. Like he's got to play those cards a bit better.
I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Talking off feminism, that was an interesting opening from yourself. It was the first words that you said. You said, "Hey, I'm a feminist," and then you went from there.
So I'm a feminist.
This struck me as quite an interesting opening gambit, because saying that to a conservative or to his...
All right, and getting off Tilly for a moment, this is what I really am appreciating about Steven's channel, Rationality Rules, right now, is that like he is really taking debates and just breaking them down from an academic level, a philosophical level, and he's doing it as brilliantly as he's always done. And what I really appreciate is he seems to be a lot firmer in his advocacy for human rights. Like he's pretty clear. Like it seems like he's learned his lessons, which also really shows good intellect. When you can learn from your mistakes, when you can become a better person, then that should mean more. And that's one thing that I really am going to try to be better at as a person myself, because anybody can be redeemed. Anybody can be. We have to continue believing that. Like people can change their minds. But I think that it's a damn great asset to be able to do so. And this is what I'm really enjoying about Rationality Rules channel right now, is these particular, like he will take these debates and really just break them down. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Conservative audience. It's kind of like getting on stage and saying, "Hey, I'm woke," or, like another one would be, "Hey, I'm a communist." Mm-hmm. And what it does is it allows them to go, enemy, done. I can just get rid of you. I don't need to listen to you. I know you're my enemy from the beginning because of the tribalistic dynamics that happen. Is there a reason that you opened with this? I'm curious.
Yes, because Charlie thought I was a Republican. And if he thought I was a Republican, he wouldn't go down the line that I knew he would go down. So I had to make it clear that I was a feminist. So I wore...
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before.
I hate them. I truly do.
Outfit. I was very friendly to him. I think he potentially cut this moment out, but I did go up to him and shake his hand and say, "It's nice to meet you." And he looked at my shirt and he went,
I hit the button. I swear. I'm glad I kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye. I did hit the button. So only a brief knock moment there. Only a brief. And I forgot what I was saying. So blah blah blah. Too early in the morning to say words. So let's go back so I can remember. I hit the button, but I must have double hit it.
Because of the tribalistic dynamics that happen. Is there a reason that you opened with this? I'm curious.
Yes, because Charlie thought I was a Republican. And if he thought I was a Republican, he wouldn't go down the line that I knew he would go down. So I had to make it clear that I was a feminist. So I wore my American flag outfit. I was very friendly to him. I think he potentially cut this moment out, but I did go up to him and shake his hand and say, it's nice to meet you. And he looked at my shirt and he went, America. And I went, America. That's what happened. And he laughed. And I was like, absolutely. Like, it was this really strange moment. Then I went over and then I thought, this is where he has his guard down. He's going to expect some reprieve. He's going to expect that I'm asking him for marriage advice. So I said, I'm a feminist immediately. There was a second reason as well, which is like way less strategic. And it was just that the last thing that he had said before I walked up was that feminism is basically going to kill us all.
Just worst ideas ever, which is modern feminism.
So I walked up and I said, so...
I might not have even skipped forward. I might have accidentally skipped back. I might have skipped forward a little bit. I don't know. It escaped me, but I was saying something with conviction. I assure you.
I'm a feminist, and that's why everybody laughed, because he literally just characterized
out, we're good.
I'm the devil,
Yep.
right? So that's why it was a bit of a joke as well.
Got you. So like a combination of the two, and that's how that landed. When it comes to the kind of debate formats that you was engaging in, something that's quite peculiar is that you get to define the terms. Because each person comes up, and they get to ask the question, which means you kind of get to define what you want to talk about. That didn't work with Charlie. He took you exactly where he wanted to immediately, which he was always going to do anyway.
Yeah.
But your question specifically emphasized the role of women in public and private life and the material benefits of that.
What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
And I'm wondering whether or not the word material is something you specifically chose, and why? Why that framing?
It was specific framing because I feel like it will resonate with a lot of conservative women. So, for example, if I said to Charlie Kirk, what's your advice for me as a woman? Then he might come up with something that's really poignant. And he might say, start a family, have children, find your community, go to your local church, take root within some place that is important to you. You know, lean into your role as feminine. And what does feminine look like? It means that you're nurturing. It means that you're compassionate. It means you have empathy. You can do things that men can't do. And I would say that's very compelling. As a woman, that's very compelling to hear. However, if I said, what does that look like? And he said, it looks like housework. It looks like submission. It looks like dominance from a man. It looks like you don't get to question him. You don't get to define your own terms. You get to follow a predetermined path that was set for you by a man, presumably a religious man who has certain interests that don't coincide with your own interests, especially if he's taking some kind of fundamentalist approach to scripture. You know, if there's no room even for the hermeneutics game in evangelical Christianity, which we know. Yeah. So it's like, if I say to him, what does that look like to you? What are the material outcomes? What are the tangible things that women should be doing? And how does that benefit community? Then he doesn't have any room to add some purple prose to make it flowery.
I see what you mean. So just to relay that back to you, you know that he has an answer that's going to sound emotionally compelling, but the actual materialistic elements of it is grotesque. So if you asked your question in such a way that he had to answer the materialistic, that forced him to say something that he was never going to say, which I assume you knew.
Yes.
He's not going to be able to say. He's going to have to pivot. He's going to have to do something because he's not going to give you the earnest answer of this is what it looks like, because he knows it's not palatable to most people. It's not even palatable to most Christians, in my experience, at least not in the UK.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll show it, but I did point it out when we actually watched the conversation she had with Charlie. The great example of what she's laying out there is the moment where she responds with Valium and lobotomies, right? So, and this is what I was talking about earlier, and this is why, like, I really need to rethink doing debates, or when I do debates, really make sure that this is part of the strategy, right? Because it takes intellect, it takes calm, to be able to make your choices, to be able to see the roads ahead that taking a conversation will do, right? And be able to see it in real time in the moment of decision, like she's laying out here. Like you can give a certain answer that opens up for Charlie an ability to use very flowery language to make a nightmare sound like a sweet dream, right? Or you can be aware of that. You can see that road of reason, right? And take a different path. One that's going to be more palatable for not only your argumentation, but really hammer home the vivid description of the reality to not only the people that agree with you, but the people that disagree and never really was able to think of it that way. This is what I'm saying. This is the glimmer of hope. And the glimmer of hope is our youth, our intelligent youth, intelligence, education, and academia. And it seems like there's definitely an element of the youth that are willing to do that for us. Still, despite all of the meme wars and propaganda. Because I remember when it seemed like we were winning the youth. And then in this very short time, I mean, in America at least, it's pretty undeniable that the youth is with the fascists now. Not all of them, but the majority, especially young white men. And it's going to take Tilly, it's going to take Steven, it's going to take the Alex O'Connors of the world mixed with the raging atheists of the world, better versions of them. You know, I have a responsibility that I never took seriously before, right? Even in my small role, because every role matters now. Every role matters now. And that's the glimmer of hope. And that's like when I was watching this yesterday, because if you watched my streams yesterday, I was in a fairly dark place for a Taoist to be in. This is what I needed.
I mean, the moment he pivots as well, that's he's down the track that I want.
Yeah.
Because he's going to pivot to what is a woman, should transgender women be allowed in sports, immigrants, whatever. It's the same. It's the same spiel.
So is it that you knew that he would pivot and you wanted him to do it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Talking of deflection, immediately he heard the word feminist and he bought it. You put the trap down and he went straight for it. He was like, "Oh, can we just agree on what a woman is? I don't want to take this detour. But can we just take this detour?"
I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
When did you clock that he wasn't going to engage? And it sounds like from what you're saying is that you knew from the very beginning, because it's part of your preparation, that you knew.
Oh, perfect time. Perfect time. All right. 1 second, Dwayne. Let me get through this. And we'll probably go back so we can hear Steven's question again. Steven asks the best questions. Like he's really good at this, and I'm glad that he's doing it.
There was a worry that
go ahead and take it back a little bit. We'll go 12:30. So Dwayne, where'd you go, Raging Atheist / Knock? It's a long story, and it's a lot of different elements. Some elements I don't really want to get into in too much detail. So I had a nervous breakdown, and for I don't know, a couple years I had like my legs had become so bad. Doctors weren't figuring out what was going on. I wasn't working, trying to fix my legs, and I got. I have nothing, right? As a result of that, nothing. And they still really haven't figured out what's wrong with my legs. I have serious issues with my legs, even though I'm healthier all around, even in my legs. That has nothing to do with where I've been, only to say, like, I had become very poor, and I had to make a decision. Do I sign another lease? And at the time, because I would work, and then my legs would kind of go out, and I couldn't work anymore. And the doctors just couldn't figure it out. especially like when I first tried to get back to work, when I first was like, you know what, doctors, I got to get back to work, you know, until I built up strength in my legs again. I couldn't I had a string of just not being able to hold a job. And when you have a lease and you've got bills to pay, it comes to where you have nothing and you've got to make a hard choice. So I moved in with my brother, and his stipulation was I didn't sign my lease. I moved in with my brother, which was supposed to be cheaper. Turned out it wasn't. And he quickly put the hammer down on any kind of streaming, talking politics, God. And it's a whole situation. Maybe I'll talk about it one day. I've been back and forth on whether or not to, because I think like toxic family is like a real thing. But needless to say, I just couldn't stream. You know, there was a couple times when nobody was around that I was able to hop into a room, but I couldn't stream. And maybe one day I'll talk about it. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been. And I've also been working on my mental health, on my physical health. Like I said, I really had to build my legs up, and I just got over 2 major infections in my right leg. I thought I was going to lose my right leg. Eventually, I'm going to lose my right leg, probably sooner than later. I'm really trying to come to terms with that mentally. So I'm almost good with that now. Like, you know, and this is a complete aside of the brilliance and that we're watching, and let this be a glimmer of hope, because I'm to a point in my brain that I'm ready to lose my leg so I can get back to a normal life without pain. And eventually, you know, my left leg is going to do the same thing, and I'll deal with that when it comes. But I'm ready to lose it now, when the doctors are ready to take it. Because after a healing period that financially is going to be just crushing, I don't know how I'll survive, but I'll figure it out. I'll be able to get a prosthetic, and I'll be able to live a normal life without the pain in my right leg that I deal with on a daily basis. So it took me a long time. I've had repetitive nightmares about it. Now, like, I'm getting at peace with it, and I really think Taoism and Buddhism has helped me with that, you know, like, because I meditate and I go inside myself, and I'm really trying to strengthen my inner being so my outer being is a better reflection of what I am as a human am. You know, it's hard to it's hard to be your best self when you're diluted with intoxicant. And that's just the simple truth. So, yeah, that's where I've been. And even in the lowest of times, I've continued to work on myself. And I think that I'm a stronger person than I've ever been, mentally. So let's continue. Let's get back to the glimmer of hope today. And that is our brilliant young youth that is going to have to fight these battles not for us, with us.
Right, he was like, "Oh, can we just agree on what a woman is? I don't want to take this detour, but can we just like take this detour?"
I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
When did
I appreciate
you
that, Dwayne.
He
I
wasn't
really do.
going
Thank
to
you.
engage, and it sounds like from what you're saying is that you knew from the very beginning, because it's part of your preparation, that you knew that he wasn't going to engage.
There was a worry that he would realise, I'm coming to Cambridge and Oxford, therefore the students here might be a little bit more prepared than I'm used to. Therefore, maybe I should do something materially to change up the script. And so that's why I was a little bit worried. I was like, let me do everything within my capacity to ensure that he takes the detours I want him to take, so that I don't have to do that much preparation. So I was during my exam term, so I didn't want to take that much time out to prep.
So when it comes to him and your worry about him being more prepared because it's Cambridge, do you think that he did any more preparation?
No.
Tell me, why would he not do the extra research?
Well, it's like, if he thinks universities are left-wing indoctrination camps, it doesn't matter if it's an Ivy or not, or if it's Oxford and Cambridge, or if it's like BYU. It doesn't matter like what kind of university it is. At the end of the day, it's a university, and that's some kind of slight against God, right? So it doesn't matter.
So you felt like he just didn't need to prepare. In some sense, he's almost like a victim to his own propaganda, and that's why he thought that it was going to be like, oh, it's going to be the same as debating at some, you know, small Christian college or something like that in Texas. When it came to explaining gender and the elements that are biological, the elements that are sociological. You gave the example of tribal tattoos.
So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
This is what you chose to illustrate for social constructs. Why did you use that particular example?
I used it because it feels far enough removed from people's everyday reality that maybe they'll be able to resonate with the analogy. So, for example, I could have got a lot closer to how we socially treat women versus men in society by saying, for example, if you saw someone walking down the street and you were unsure what their gender was, but she was wearing a dress and she had makeup on and she was speaking in a high voice, and there were markers that you could see, potentially not necessarily directly biological, but there were a lot of social markers you could see, you would probably treat them as a woman. And therefore, what's the difference between treating someone as a woman and them being a woman if we agree that we can separate femaleness from womanhood, right?
Yep.
But that's too close to people's everyday reality that they might just switch off immediately, especially if they've already made up their mind about something that's incredibly emotive and a hot topic. So I said, imagine you're in a tribe, and in that tribe you have to get a tattoo to become a woman. That's kind of a social experience that's mapped onto your biology.
And sufficiently far removed.
It's sufficiently far removed.
That's interesting, because that's what I do with, so for example, when I bring up fallacies, I will give an example that is completely removed, and it allows them to separate it and go, okay, I see the logical problem here.
All right, hopefully we're not having any lag. My computer just started really running there. It seems like it calmed down a little bit, but it's still going.
Yeah, now I can apply it. So it's interesting that you're using like a similar technique where it's like, no, let's go for something that's far enough removed that you can't really argue the point by conflating it or obfuscating it with things that are in, within our proxy, within like our immediate vision. Now, when you dropped the sociological perspective that you had, Charlie just completely ignored it and he moved on. Do you think he mentioned prostates?
Can a woman have a prostate?
Which is to illustrate he wasn't listening to what you were saying because you were giving an example that is a socially constructed element, not biological. Do you think that he genuinely didn't understand, or that it's strategic on his part?
It's strategic. He knows that there are social and biological markers that make up womanhood, because he didn't check my chromosomes before he referred to me as a female. He didn't check my chromosomes before he implied that I would be a single cat lady and not a single cat non-binary person or a single cat man. So obviously he understands that the way we interact with gender is complicated, it's variegated, there's all kinds of things that go into it. But if he recognises that, there's a few other things that he'll have to concede upon. Like, for example, actually our biological differences aren't particularly compelling enough to then prescribe a whole bunch of roles that we...
Oh, she's so brilliant. And she's so brilliant that she's triggering Jill in the side chat. Where's that? Just because you went to Cambridge doesn't make you smart. Such a petulant child. Such a petulant child, Jill. But she's just so brilliant, and she's just displaying like this level of intelligence, but not just intelligence, debate skill, debate knowledge. Knowing how to debate is a talent, and it's something that can be learned, and she's learning it at one of the best places that you could possibly learn it. Not only learning it, but thriving in that element, right? She is, and again, links in the description to both Rationality Rules and Tilly's brand new channel. Be one of the first. Like I was, after 6,000 before 7 this morning, she's over 8. By the time I actually show you her channel, she's probably going to be over 10,000 subscribers. Get in on it early, yo. This is going to be a champion for us, because she's going to do it right. And she seems like she's a good person, and I just hope she's one of many that are going to start really, as she's saying, one of many of not only young academia, but all of academia. And I think we are starting to see it a little bit. I was watching an interview. I think her name was Ann Applebaum, something like that. It was a great interview. I think we do see some of academia really starting to come out of, kind of where they retreat, and are starting to really take their responsibilities seriously. And so she's displaying that inside of a debate, you've got to be strategic. And this is why I look back at all of my old debates, even the ones that I feel like I won comfortably. and just kind of cringe. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the level of intellect we need in these exchanges. And I've always said I'm a conversationalist, and I should have listened to my own mouth speaking, right? And not embarrassed myself, even in those victories. Because this is what we need. Not in that setting, right?
Or ought to do. Yeah. If your very makeup isn't designed by God such as to juxtapose with a man and vice versa, then what that means is maybe not all women are destined for housewifery, like wifery, for example.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, he needs that created by God framework.
Yeah.
Because without that, there just isn't enough sexual dimorphism in.
Exactly.
And even if there was, you still can't do a normative claim on top of that. But so from his point of view, it's kind of smart in the sense that it's like, I can't follow you down that. I have to just make some joke and try and like straw man you or something along those lines. So you expected it, but you still wanted to get the point out because it illustrates to the world that's listening that they can see it happen in real time. Would that be like a fair analysis of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think my goal was potentially to just make it very clear that this is someone who doesn't really debate. This is someone who consistently pivots over and over again. And insofar as you can predict every single pivot because you know the things that they don't know, you know the rabbit holes that they can't go down, otherwise it would mess with their image, then you can follow them with it.
So if you know your enemy well enough, you know where they can't tread.
Yeah.
So you can go around there and get a load of points.
Yeah.
And illustrate what you're trying to illustrate, knowing that they can't actually interact with
I just let him go there.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
That's fair. It's an observation that I've made from debating a lot of apologists, a lot of people, like Stefan Molyneux, for example. Like, it happens in politics as well as religion. They almost have an incredible gift for not getting your point. And it's after so much time that I was like, well, this is either deliberate, and in which case I'm accused.
And Stephen's about to make, he's going to be laying it out this whole time, and his ultimate point, and why I think he breaks down debates the way that he does, is to show that most of these people are bad faith. They argue in bad faith. They know they argue in bad faith. And that's the best thing he's doing right now, is showing that in real time, taking these debates and just showing their bad faith argumentation in real time. And that's pretty much the point that he's going to really start hammering home here.
Them of something nefarious, or they're stupid, or I'm really bad at communicating. And after like so many times, you're like, okay, it can't be the communication thing. And I don't think they're stupid. So it has to be that they are deliberately doing it. So is that how you've come to like a confidence level of like, I know that he's almost certainly doing it deliberately?
He's obviously not an unintelligent person. I'm also never going to denigrate an opponent by saying that they're unintelligent. Like, I would potentially say that they're ill-informed.
Careful, Joe. Careful. I am paying more attention to chat now, and I'll let you be your atrocious self. And but you start disrespecting women, dude. You're gonna be in your month ban, yo. I'll have to take you off in a month. You know how it is, bro. You know how it is. Be civil as Jill can be. And that comment there, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable to me, dude. This is your warning. I don't even have to point out the comment. You know the one I'm talking about. It's unacceptable.
Or unprepared. I said at one point that Charlie Kirk is a dropout of community college, and I got some flack for it, but it's just, I'm stating a fact, which is this is someone who's masquerading as an academic.
Yeah. But
actually, there are some requirements that you have to fulfill in order to have an academic background that's worthy enough for you to speak on certain things. And that's not to be elitist. That's just to say, for example, if you're a doctor, you probably have to go to medical school. That's not an elitist thing. I don't want my brain surgeon to have done his own research, you know?
It's actually an interesting one because
I forgot. It is Jill. He makes a lot of comments, so I should be specific. But even your newest one is like, it's borderline, bro. It's borderline. You better watch your step. I'll pull the trigger myself. But I'm talking about the lumps comment. Come on, don't be a dick.
it's like one way that's cashed out is it's poisoning the well. So like you can just like, before you even debate Charlie, you can point out this guy's a dropout, that he doesn't have any kind of credentials. And some people would look at that and go, well, that's just an ad hominem, right?
Yeah.
You know, like that's like you're poisoning the well. But there's actually controversy around that in the sense that it's not clear that there's anything particularly wrong with that. As you said, the example that you gave, like if you've got a surgeon, you may want to know this information beforehand. So there's actually a debate around whether or not it's actually a foul at all. So it just like speaks to what you're saying there. At one point following this, he said, right, so you're a feminist who also cares about men, which to me is the critical moment of absurdity. Like, it was so profoundly stupid. What was it like having him essentially say, you believe and practice what feminism has always believed and practiced?
You're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
Was it bizarre, or did you also expect that as well?
All right, before she answers, I had brought this up earlier in the stream, and it's just basic feminism, right? Like, the right wing really tries to make feminism a hate ideology, and we're really going to see it amped up coming up, I believe. And I spoke of this yesterday in The World is Evil Part 2, and I stand by it. I'm pretty much still there, you know. So if you haven't seen that, not to be a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust the narrative that's being pushed right now. So I think that it's going to get really amped up in here in America over the next several months, over the next several weeks. So yeah, I allow myself to get sidetracked there again. So let's just proceed. Oh yeah. And we don't need negativity this morning. This is a glimmer of hope, not a glimmer of dark, right? A glimmer of hope. This is the hope. And we'll deal with the dark.
I expected that because if you think about it, Charlie Kirk speaks to a specific type of person.
Yeah.
So, for example, he'll go on podcasts and speak with young female students who maybe feel disaffected by what's happening in society. For example, young men are polling a lot more anti-feminist than even older men at the moment. They probably feel disaffected, they feel resentful, and they'll come with emotional arguments because especially a lot of these podcasts are sold as conversational. So, for example, like Andrew Wilson's show is sold as a dating podcast. So you have these young girls, a lot of them are on OnlyFans, a lot of them like are just going there to promote themselves, and they're not there for
Andrew
some kind
Jones,
of intellectual conversation or debate. They're saying,
I don't know, somehow my algorithm, like about a year ago, started pushing a lot of his shit at me, and it was, and I think it's, what's sad is like, you know, because I had always considered myself a person that like listened to what the right wing were listening to. You know, for the longest time, I don't do it anymore. For the longest time, I kept right-wing talk radio on in my car. Now I don't listen to anything when I'm driving unless I have an earbud in and I'm listening to like a podcast or something. Often philosophy. Like I'm constantly now. I think people will find my philosophy skills have increased exponentially since I left YouTube. I'm no Rationality Rules or Alex O'Connor by any means, but I'm not a fucking dummy anymore. So I lost track of what I was saying. I've done that a lot this morning. Hopefully that's not going to be a consistent theme of these morning chats. It'll probably improve once I take this out of the diet. It's something that I'm going to do like very, very soon. This is pretty much the only medication I take for my glaucoma. So I've got an eye appointment coming up to where I'm not just the regular eye appointment, the glaucoma eye appointment, and I'm actually going to get back on my medication for glaucoma, and I'm going to take this out of my diet, and so hopefully maybe those brain farts will lessen when I take the weed out, you know.
say, well, yeah, like, screw these men. I hate men. I can't stand them. I'm so pissed off with them. And then obviously Charlie Kirk will see that and probably think, this is what feminism means. This is what feminists are going to say. If I say, what, you fight for men as a feminist, maybe she'll laugh in my face and say, no, of course I don't. But it's like, that's not the realm of academic feminism. That's not policy.
And then after that comes the two hard things. This and sweet coffee. Coffee's got to go too. I've been under orders for like 2 years to get rid of coffee, and I'm gonna finally do it. But one at a time, right?
Proposals. There's not a bunch of Instagram influencers sat around a table at Parliament thinking like, yeah, like, we really fucking hate men, and like, I really don't want to do anything about this. Like, it's not reality, like, in terms of policy, you know.
Yeah, it's what's particularly interesting is that if say that I was debating Christians, as I do, and I was to go on stage and I was to make out that, like, oh, wow, you're a Christian that doesn't believe in creationism. Most Christians don't believe in creationism.
It's a minority of
but
mine.
I would be able to, like, take the worst of the worst and present it as if it's like the whole, which is what he's essentially doing. Like, you may find, like, some, I wouldn't even call them feminists, but you can get some people that are just, they do hate men, like, straight up. And he wants to take that and elevate it. And as you were saying with Andrew Wilson, and he wants to make it so that it looks like it's the norm. But if I was to get on stage and I was to make a statement like what he did, it would be embarrassing to me. And I would get called out by my own side. But it's not something that happens in his echo chamber. He won't get called out from it, presumably because his audience also doesn't understand the first thing about feminism either. Is that your experience?
Yeah. If you ask, this is the thing, like, I could have played this game myself and said, well, can you define feminism? Can you define this? Or you don't even know what feminism means. But I just think that makes me look a certain way. And I don't want to look as though I'm lording it over someone too much, especially because Charlie Kirk's title, when he posted the video of our debate, was Cambridge Feminist Resorts to Insults. Personally, I don't think that I did that. Yeah. I struggle to find, and even some of his own fans are commenting saying this was a bit of a clickbait title.
Yes,
she didn't insult you at all. She maybe insulted your arguments. Yeah. Maybe she laughed because you think sociology isn't real, even though you're a sociologist for a living, basically. Like, you know, but...
Like, she just fucking brutally eviscerates everything about Charlie Kirk because she understands Charlie Kirk. And this is what academia can do if they just stop retreating. Like, apply your brains to defeat these arguments that are corrupting the minds of our children, right? Like, you know, it's been pretty much like YouTubers trying to do it for 10 years, and it hasn't worked, right? Like, we need to bring in the experts. We really do, and they need to be willing to come. And that's the glimmer of hope, is it looks like maybe the young generation of experts isn't going to be afraid in a time when it's going to take some fucking courage.
So I wasn't going to, like, particularly lean into this explanatory framework.
And not only, like, disseminating Charlie Kirk, but explaining feminism very, very, very well, right? Like, it's the thing that I think fails to be conveyed when we enter these rooms of Christians, or you know, like when I was talking with William Freeman all them times, and you know, and the woman hatred that you're experiencing in the side chat now with Jill, that you are familiar with, right? You're familiar with it. You know, it is being able to convey the actual reality of what it actually is like, no, stupid, without saying stupid rage, right? No, stupid. It's actually, you know, beneficial for your rights as well. And here's why. Right. But in order to do that, you've got to make those decisions, especially in debate atmospheres with these grifters. Right. You've got to be able to understand the decisions that you need to make. And that's what people like this can do. Right. So this is the fight, and this is the glimmer of hope. This is what we've got to have.
Like, I was rather just going to focus on the issues of what I care about.
That's interesting, because from my debate style, I would look at it and I'd go, I am going to wipe the floor with you on this. Mm-hmm. So I would be like standing there going, hey guys, this...
The argument, Jill, is that the argument that your side pushes forth is that feminism is somehow harmful to society because it takes away rights from men. That's your entire argument. Because you don't understand what feminism actually is, which is a call for equal rights for all human beings, including women, right? I know it's a very hard concept for you to understand.
Person, he goes around all of these universities, he stands up and he says feminism is terrible, and he does it all over the world. And yet what we've just had is a revelation that he doesn't know the first fucking thing about it. Like, how embarrassing. Like, what the hell? Before we move on, Charlie, do you want to just own that? Like, that's such a profoundly ignorant, stupid thing that you've just said. And then I might like use an example which would illustrate it. And I was wondering, why is it that you didn't want to capitalize that and humiliate him? You've kind of slightly answered it, but can you expand upon that? Like, why did you not take the opportunity?
I think it's partly because as a woman, that's called being a bitch.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
if you're having an intellectual discussion and with Charlie Kirk, if it was you versus him, and you said this guy doesn't know the first thing about feminism, Charlie would probably say, absolutely not, you're so wrong, you don't know the first thing about feminism, and you would have that argument. Whereas if I said this guy doesn't know the first thing about feminism, a few people might roll their eyes and say, oh, she's kind of shrill, she's kind of annoying, what, she's so superior, she thinks she's so much better than him, he does this for a living, what does she do? She probably has cats, you know, she probably doesn't have a boyfriend, she's probably so lonely. All these personal attacks come as an onslaught. So it's really important when I stick to the issues. Like, it's super important.
That's fascinating. So it's basically a privilege that I have because I'm able to do it because I can just do this. Whereas if you did exactly the same thing, you're aware of the dynamics where it would look different. And so you have to play that game and you have to get involved in that sense. That's fascinating. Well, I actually think that like the technique that you did was particularly effective because what you kept doing is allowing him to push the conversation and you met him and gave him refutation. He moved on. And whereas like my debate style would be, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire so you're embarrassed and then we'll move on and I'll embarrass you again. You just like was just going down this path and he had to keep pivoting and keep going. And that obviously worked. It's one of the reasons I covered it. It's one of the reasons you got the praise. Like, was that deliberate? You just thought, I will follow him with every single one and I will keep exposing. Is that the plan? Is that your debate method as in general? Like, can you speak to, essentially that style and whether it was deliberate?
Generally, no. But when it comes to people like Charlie Kirk, you have to think about how you imagine they are as a person. And because of Charlie Kirk's beliefs, i.e. that he believes there are specific biological differences between the sexes that you should respect and potentially enforce through some kind of theocratic autocracy, he's probably not going to view me as a woman as someone who's going to attempt this debate on the same ground as him as a man. So he's probably going to think, she's going to allow me to take this conversation anywhere, and that's how I'm going to win. And actually, I was leading him to a similar conclusion the entire time by allowing him to pivot and allowing him to believe that he'd won.
It's interesting. It's like using his strengths against him or his perceived strengths. Like,
I know like Trumpers will like to say Trump exists in like 5D chess or whatever. But that's truly like 5D chess, right? Like that's like, that skill you hone, like Christians will talk about what do they say, like sword against sword or whatever, like sharpening the swords. Stupid bullshit. I can't remember my scripture. Often heard praise talk about that a lot. Basically, if you're arguing with each other, then you're sharpening your swords and blah 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 blah. And like to be able to understand those nuances within a debate, those are skills that you hone, and she's able to do that. And like probably one of the brightest, I can only imagine, like the level of debate you're having as head of the debate club for Cambridge University, like the level of debates that she is having on a weekly basis. And is going to continue to have as she works her way through her graduate work, I'm sure, it's only going to get better and better and better. And that's why I'm glad that she actually decided to make a channel. So again, links in the description to both Rationality Rules and to Tilly. She has a brand new channel, dropped her first real video yesterday. She has some shorts up, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot from her. And these are the kinds of young champions that we're going to need moving forward. And that's the glimmer of hope. And I want to do that more on this channel. Like more than I've ever done before. Is I used to get a lot of comments is like, from my own side is, Rage, you're pretty good at pointing out the problems, but not so good at like pointing out solutions. I would get emails about that, and it always hit home to me. And I would try to do it, but I was too drunk to do it. So I really want to focus on that and offer solutions instead of gripes, right? Like as much as I possibly can. So let's continue.
He thinks that he's like, I'm in control. And you're like, well, I know that you're going to think that way. So I can actually, if I play my cards right, lead you exactly where I want, which you did.
So triggered today,
why
Joe.
You were immediately ready.
I thought you had like an hour, bro. You've been here this whole time.
If the patriarchy harms both men and women, which it clearly does, as you articulated to Charlie, why do you think that so many men still instinctively resist feminism?
I think because what feminism seeks to do is to recognize the extent to which the personal is political. And given this, what that means is that now men no longer have a safe haven within the home through which they can take back some power. So, for example, I think a lot of men have grievances that are valid and worthy of consideration. For example, income inequality, employment problems, inflation, financial burdens, emotional stigma. All of this stuff is totally worthy of thinking about, and a lot of feminists do think about it quite a lot. And the reason why, how men gain their power in that system is by within the home having some kind of oppressive control over women. And that doesn't mean all men are oppressing their wives. What that means is that a certain framework of patriarchy that people like Charlie Kirk like to reinforce. For example, I mean, Charlie Kirk's wife speaks about how she wants to create a soft landing pad for when he comes back home, and about what her role is, and how it's a really rigid role and specific one that she has to follow. So insofar as all of this is like encapsulated within Charlie Kirk's ideology, and an ideology that's becoming more and more popular among young men, I think that's probably why they're going to resist patriarchy being harmful to them. Because at the same time as we have socially regressive things that are happening, workers' rights are being decimated, the welfare state has been cut, you have neoliberal policy programs that basically aim to reinforce unequal relationships between men at the top and men at the bottom. The only people who would be below a man who's at the bottom would probably be a woman who's in the same position. And I think that when you have this like working class who feel so disenfranchised, and the only place for them to turn where they can attain any kind of powers within the home, then maybe they're more likely to turn to people like red pill or super Christian or theocratic men.
So do you think men are more susceptible to that than women?
No. I'm not a bioessentialist, that's why I'm a feminist.
Interesting. So why would it be that men are the ones that are resisting it more? Because women are in the workplace, right? And women are experiencing these difficulties. And yet, like, they're not necessarily resisting, this egalitarian state. They want, but with men, it seems to be that they are falling more towards patriarchy. Is there a specific element that describes that disparity, or?
I mean, I think it's just the way that society is composed. People feel that they have to perform certain roles and functions, and when that is mixed up in some capacity. I mean, what's happened because of feminism is that overall women have gained more autonomy and more freedoms, and they have had overall like a better experience. There are some things that haven't been better for them that are not because of feminism. Like, for example, income inequality, like the reactionary conservative movements that have made the world a pretty hostile environment for many women at the moment. There are tons of reasons why women's lives have got worse as well as better. But because of feminism, I would say that they've overall had more freedoms and autonomy.
That's a great point. It's because that's an argument that they'll make as well. Women are so much better off now. Why do they bitch so much? Well, in some ways they are, and in some ways they aren't. Because as we see, it's so easy to take things away. And as I covered, 2 days ago now, the pastors they're listening to is telling them pretty much women shouldn't be voting. They need to pretty much be in the workplace unless you're like Ivanka. So it's good to have, people that can actually articulate it better than I and understand it and understand that there's been, with anything, bad choices made. But we're not going to be able to reach people unless we're able to articulate it, right? And unless we actually try to reach them, which unfortunately, as we become more divided, is going to be harder to do. And especially unfortunately, because, I'm old enough to remember when I predicted several years now that we're going to see a civil war, and we're going to see it sooner than later. And we're closer to that than ever right now. We're going to need people to be able to articulate if we want to avoid that. And I still think it's not too late to avoid it. But it's 11:58. We're 2 minutes to midnight. So we need a glimmer of hope, because we are going to see a great taking away of rights. We are going to see a complete destruction of the American idea. And we're already seeing its dissembling before our very eyes. And I predict today is going to be a crazy day. That's my prediction this morning. Everything's about to start up. It already has. It's 8 o'clock now. Wow, I've been streaming for a long time. And we're going to do this whole thing, so we're only halfway through with this conversation. Today's going to be a crazy day is my prediction. I hope I'm wrong.
With men, it's not quite the same. Men feel that something has been taken away from them because they no longer have economic leverage. They no longer have sexual access all the time. And that's something that is hard to get used to. It's difficult. So
it's a difference. It's like one of them is an elevation of rights and freedoms. And so obviously it's an easy thing to accept. Whereas the other one is you are losing some of your freedoms or losing some of the things that you've enjoyed. And that's not something that's easy to be able to take.
Yeah, like freedom to exploit, even if it's something that is a bad thing to have, it can feel empowering for you to own it.
So is it like conditioning, essentially? Men have been conditioned to think this way, whereas if they were born into a society that was truly egalitarian, in your view, there wouldn't be a difference in the way that they look at it. Everyone would essentially just look at patriarchy and go, that's not what we want.
Yeah, and you have to think about who wins patriarchy, because men overall don't win patriarchy.
No.
A poor man isn't winning patriarchy. A rich man is winning patriarchy. And feminism also, when you think about the way that feminism has worked alongside other movements, like social democrat movements, like workers' rights movements, like unions, then you think about who the real enemy is.
I see what you mean. Once you look at that element, you can see the connectivity of it all, and that's telling you the broader story.
Yeah.
Yep. Charlie jumped from topic to topic to topic, right? So as we've been saying, he went from trans issues, he talked about happiness, he talked about religion, and then immigration. He was just bouncing all over the place. Did it change your approach at all?
Throughout the debate, I got consistently more and more relaxed and excited because he was doing exactly that. And I thought, there's no way that I am arrogant enough to get inside the mind of someone and decide that first they will talk about trans people, then they will talk about happiness, then they will talk about Muslims, and finally they will come full circle and make some kind of weird claim about importing the third world. And then when I had done it, I was like, I've pulled this off. This is fine. This is all fine.
So I'm starting to get the sense that any question...
Yeah, I have to imagine that's a great feeling. And I experienced something similar in my annihilation of Jill on Praise's channel. I will find that. I might find that today and just put that up next to the Matt Powell debate. It's hard to watch because Praise maybe he knows how now, but didn't know then how to operate a channel and run a debate. But I put it together as best I could. I'll have to find it. But yeah, like, it's got to feel good when it works out perfectly as planned. And again, if you go back and watch the entire thing, Charlie Kirk versus 400 Cambridge students, he gets smoked through the entire thing. It was a good day for academia, I think. And I'm so glad that Charlie put it up on his channel. I'm so appreciative of it. But yeah, that has to be a great feeling. It has to be a good feeling when things just go pretty much 100% exactly how you thought they would, and you was able to 100% articulate each and every refutation of his argumentation. It was brilliant. It's why, like, I've actually watched it several times. I watched Steven here at Rationality Rules break down the debate step by step by step by step, and he does it with several of them. He does, several of the people in the Cambridge debate with Charlie, but he'll do it with Candace Owens. He'll do it with Jordan Peterson. It's been fun to watch.
Of deliberation, the answer is yes, because it shows your preparation. You said that you weren't prepared, but I think this shows that you were super prepared. You knew what you were doing. Your debate background coming into the show. When you were discussing women's happiness data, You brought up Valium and you brought up lobotomies, which is interesting elements because they're on the more extreme end. You changed the conversation because it was about, were women happier? That's where he wanted to go. And you changed it and flipped it so that you were saying that women weren't allowed to express happiness.
So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Was that a planned thing? Was you ready with that as a move?
Well, I think one of the important duties that people on the left have to do is to explain what things look like. So, as I was kind of saying earlier, Charlie would probably never sit in front of me and explain to me what my duty as a wife actually would look like under his framework and in his world, because then that would mean I could say, okay, there are two worlds here. There is your world and there is my world. And in my world, here is everything that is better and here is everything that happens and here is what my day-to-day life looks like. He doesn't want you to say, you know, you should probably submit to Greg. Yeah. He wants you to say, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord, right? Because then you can make these big sweeping generalizations. It doesn't quite sound so mundane and slightly dangerous as submitting to Greg. So I think in order to kind of express similar sentiments, you do have to flip the language, and you do have to think about what was it like to be a woman on the worst day of her life back then.
And this seems to feed into your emphasis on material outcomes. Mm-hmm. So rather than allowing him to have the abstract where people get to fill in that stuff with their own, whatever they see is a good thing, you're forcing it into the...
Yeah, that was a brilliant moment she had, and it was the viral moment. It's why she's gotten a lot of recognition for her conversations with Charlie, and she's now like she has a conversation with a woman named Pro. I don't know anything about her, but that was a great video that she put out yesterday, and so it looks like she's going to try to take these skills and apply them where they're needed, which is just crucial. And earlier when I was talking about, like, you know, like even before I started watching like Rationality Rules again and watching him break down these debates the way that he does now, like he used to do it back in the day when I was watching him, but he does it in a different way now, and it's rather brilliant the way he's doing it. Is like I can look back even at those victories that I had back then and just like realize I'm not the person for that. Like I don't have that 5D intellect capability to be able to go completely down those roads, because I'm just too emotional of a person for that. Like I will react with emotion, and anybody that knows me, at least back then, can easily trigger that, right? It might be a little more difficult now because I've got more of a peaceful core now than I did then. But inherently, that's just part of the person that I am, right? I am an emotional person, and instead of run away from that, as a Taoist, I embrace that, you know. So I am who I am and can be no other. And once you truly embrace what you are, and that's how I can sit here and just tell you, like, make comments about myself, and still feel completely comfortable about myself, about how I've been an utter and complete failure my entire life. Because I don't intend to be that any longer, right? But I can look back at myself with honest eyes instead of the eyes that I myself might want to look at myself with, right? If that makes any sense at all. But it's been, you know, it's been eye-opening to realize that, no, there is a science to it. There is a level of intellect that is needed. And not just intellect, again, charisma, right? Optics and charisma, and just being able to suck people into you, right? To where they're listening to your words in refutation of the things they've always heard before. So it's just brilliant, and I really like that Stephen reached out to her, and hopefully he'll do it with a couple of the other students that were involved in that conversation, because I'm sure he's probably they probably share a lot of circles, and really like get into their minds on how they're able to do it, so I can stop embarrassing myself and just kind of focus on the conversations. Although I probably would never like run away from a debate, I can at least be aware of where I've been inefficient before and really start trying to practice to improve that. but I'm definitely probably not going to seek out debate because I want to have conversations, right?
Material where you're actually going, it looks like lobotomies, it looks like Valium, it looks like
Good morning,
inability to
Shashai.
express happiness. So okay, crazy that the stats might not bear out what you might want to see. And so it sounds like that is a general tactic that you used against Charlie. And is it a general tactic that you would recommend against people like Charlie? It's bring it from the abstract into the very real and use the examples that are going to make people like think.
And I think I said kids, definitely not kids, young adults. Kids to me, I'm an old person.
Oh yeah, that's what it looks like materialistically.
In debate, we use a term called characterization. And what that means is you characterize something, you characterize what it looks like, and you get tons of points for it in a debate. Because it's very easy to sit there and say, okay, well, I think introducing this legislation is a bad thing because it means the economy gets worse, whatever. What does it look like when the economy gets worse? How do people feel? How might people react? Would there be protests? Would there be riots? Would there be some kind of reactionary movement that will come about? Talking about what things look like is super important when it comes to engaging with the other side.
That's fascinating. One thing that we learned in advertising is that you could say there are like 500 people starving, and that's going to have some kind of resonance with people. But if you just show them one person, you have a far higher chance of actually getting them to be able to give money towards the charity or whatever the cause is. And it sounds like you're just applying that as character. Is that what it's called? Character in the debate format, so that you could bring it into the tangible examples rather than the abstract.
Yeah, it's the same when you talk about anything. Something, I can't remember the author who said this, but he said when you talk about war, you don't speak about hundreds of thousands of casualties. You talk about a child's sock alone on the ground, because that's so...
Yeah, and that's true. That's something that, I learned in my writing very young and it's something that I think is really highlighted in a movie like A Thin Red Line, which is one of my favorite war movies of all time. A lot of people don't like a couple things about that movie. One, that it's poetic, the way that it's shot, the poetic prose that's used through most of the movie is one of the major complaints. The other is a lot of people don't like Jim Caviezel. I personally don't like Jim Caviezel as a person, but I think he's a good actor, and I try to differentiate the two usually. Horrible person, good actor, but there are moral dilemmas that come. Like, I tend not to watch his movies any longer now that I know that he's just like an absolute horrible person, but I won't not watch a movie because of him, right? Like, I'm not seeking out Jim Caviezel movies because he's a dick and beyond a dick, but if he's in a movie that I want to watch, I'll check it out, and I've always been able to kind of differentiate. Like, I'm a huge Orson Scott, Orson Scott Card. Like, man, my brain isn't firing. I am getting over a major illness. It's something that's going around Michigan right now. It's bronchitis and flu melded together in some kind of super thing that's destroying everything. Man, it was rough. So not quite firing. Orson Scott Card, who has some fairly atrocious religious views and just views of society. Don't know his politics, but I can assume, but a brilliant writer that I've always enjoyed. And one of my great reliefs in life is that Stephen King has decent politics, although like his Epstein comment was just fucking idiotic and makes even me think. But he's always at least had really solid politics that I didn't have to do that double tap pause on, well, can I really support Stephen King now? So yeah, I've always been able to do that.
Much more resonant because it means that it speaks to people's everyday experiences.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from...
And I don't... All right. Double tapping that button. Don't have my OBS up, of course, so let's pause.
Statistics, that information right in front of you, in your head. And Charlie,
I'm gonna definitely be getting YouTube Premium to
but confidently stated.
Knock out those ads.
How should progressives communicate data when the right is so effective with emotional storytelling?
Yeah, I think that it's really intelligent that the right has managed to flip the script on the left, because the left have historically been understood as, whether or not you're thinking about political parties or interest groups or whatever, as people who don't particularly have an emotional stance. You have some exceptions, like you have the Soviet Union stuff and any kind of like ultra-communist movement, people probably associate with high motiveness. But generally, when you think about the left, especially like post-war Britain's a good example of this, you had the Keynesian economists who were like objective and stuff, and then you had these weirdo fascists who were harking back to a time that didn't really exist, who were thinking about ethnic relations and not really examining how that demographic shift would probably work in society. You have people who have these like vast and wild imaginations. They were understood as the conservatives. And then you had people who were workers, people who, you know, who had careers and went out every single day and did the hard graft, and that was the left. And I think that the right did a really intelligent thing of flipping the script on that and saying, the left, you guys have your academia, you guys are up in the clouds, you guys are up there with your stats. We're down here, you know, in the mud with our real life experiences. And obviously that's not true, because what is a study? A study is a collated group of real life experiences that is then mapped onto a graph so that you can understand how something is going to affect a vast base, like a swathe of individuals. I think the left needs to reclaim intellectualism as not something that's lofty and elitist, as something that affects you and that you can learn. It's an accessible skill. It's something that everyone deserves to have access to.
Do you think that's the key for?
And that's the true thing. It's not elitist, right? Like anybody can do it. Like, you know, I remember I was in Richard Madson's stream, and Khalil Allah, disgusting human being that he is, came in and really schooled me on philosophy and really just put me into a drunken rage. And it was, fuck philosophy, what has philosophy ever done for blah 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 blah. And I could spend the next 3 years, and while I'm no philosopher, I at least understand my own philosophies, and I understand logic and reason at a capable level now, and that will only improve the more I actually learn it, because you can learn as a human being, right? You can learn if you actually apply yourself and dedicate yourself to learning. So that is like the truest thing she says through all of this, is that the left really needs to reclaim academia as something that's not elitist but applicable, and applicable in a very easy to understand way, and learnable, right? Like anybody can do it. Anybody can learn knowledge if they want to, right? You don't have to go to Fox News every day. You can learn your own knowledge. It's a new concept, but it's been around for about 200,000 years, right?
The popularism as well. Like, you need to actually meet people where they're at, but using their examples. That's what the right is doing very effectively, and why they're co-opting that space, whereas the left has become more dry and academic and more data and abstract, whereas they should absolutely get back to those roots, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, there's a certain mentality among some leftists, especially in academic circles, that is
super nice Christian dude that has very problematic views on homosexuality and has made several like disgusting comments throughout his career. I don't not watch a Jim Caviezel movie though. Like, he was probably my favorite actor in The Thin Red Line, and I actually liked him in the Jesus movie Mel Gibson made.
It's just over, and that we need to retreat back to our safe spaces with our tweed and like not really look outside.
It does appear like being Jesus went to his head though. Like he literally like plays Jesus every Christmas time now, like in like IRL. You know, it's kind of weird.
Anymore, because whatever's going on out there, it's too late. And that's where I think people have that perception of elitism. And that's why I encourage academics to not do that, to resist that urge, because it's a strong urge, especially when those academics belong to minoritized groups, especially when those academics have worked hard at their craft and see it consistently become denigrated and devalued. The instinct to just retreat is like understandable, but you can't do it.
I haven't been to the grocery store in...
And I should say, like, my favorite actor in the movie, not like overall actor, but like the acting job that was done. His character Whit was like one of several main characters, but probably the main character. And I thought his performance was fucking spot on, as well as Passion of the Christ and a couple other movies. What was that? Haley Joel Osment movie he did, Pay It Forward. I thought that was really good. Or no, Angel Eyes. I think it was Angel Eyes that I'm thinking of, not the Pay It Forward movie. Yeah, good movies, but he has been canceled several times through his career. Several times. I know I've had to consider, all right, is it still worth it? Like, he is a good actor, but, you know, even for myself, and I try not to do that. All right, let me get through this freaking ad now. Man, there's just so many of them now. It's like you got to know, like, they're making you get YouTube Premium, right? Like, if they don't like ad blockers, they want you to pay for it. So I'm gonna fucking pay for it, I guess. YouTube is not the same. It's not the same. How a year changes things, right?
Yeah.
So as we know, Charlie Kirk could be considered bad faith in the sense that it's very scripted. He knows what he's doing. Bad faith here could be defined in such a way as to be not authentic, which, to be fair, pretty much every debate falls into that, because there's an element of trying to, even with yourself, it's an element of trying to control the conversation. But for him, it's not about truth that's being aimed at. It's very much like his pre-beliefs, his Christian nationalism, for example. What do you think about engaging with bad faith actors and giving them legitimacy, right? He got to speak at Cambridge University. He's going to use that on his CV, if you see what I mean. Like, he's going to be able to present himself as, I spoke here. And, you know, what do you think about engaging with them?
I mean, a few things. The first one is, what the Cambridge Union did was take Charlie Kirk out of his natural environment and place him in a neutral third-party space so that people could make him look like an idiot organically. The second thing is, when you debate someone, you're not prescribing that their ideas are legitimate. Oftentimes, I think it's the opposite. Debate is a formalized challenge to a set of ideas, preferably a set of ideas that are very prominent in society. That's why we're having the debate. I think if you are against challenging someone in a formalized context to a set of prominent ideas, then what are you for?
At one point, he's bringing up happiness day.
Yeah, it was kind of fast. So, like, if you're against challenging ideas, then what are you for, right? Like, and that's what, like, it's what the right does. They don't want to really have a clash of ideas. They want to enforce their own. And what are their own ideals? Can anybody tell me? Do they even know anymore? Because it's not small government. It's a fascist government. It's not fiscal responsibility. It's tax cuts to the rich, outrageous spending, opulence, like unnecessary opulence, right? Like, I mean, if you're an avid Trump supporter and you love America, how can you watch any press briefing from inside the White House right now without having your eyes assaulted by all the gaudy fake gold that Trump is putting in that White House? Like, I see an interview come from the Oval Office and I start smelling like cheap Old Spice perfume. Like, how can these patriots be proud of that? It's disgusting. That in itself is, like, disgusting. Ugh.
And you just, like, sarcastically quip back, oh, is there some smiles per capita data
switch
set
back
that
to
I
share
wasn't
screen.
aware of?
They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's like, it's a little bit of a one-liner.
And the audience laughs.
Thank you, Brady. I'll remember
Charlie
that.
visibly looks hurt. He's looking around. He's not having a good time. Walk us through that moment, what you were thinking at that moment.
I mean, in my head, I was actually weighing up two options. The first option I was weighing up was, do I January 6th this? Because I could have said, all these happy housewives breaking into the Capitol. Like they're probably not that serene either. Like, the vision of a bunch of Republican MAGA women shooting at the police and stuff and getting arrested on January.
I wouldn't want to be president, Kent Hovind CPA. Hell no. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because I've been trying to tell people, like, you don't have to like Gavin Newsom to like his fight, right? You don't have to like his policy to like his fight. You don't have to like that he's a corporate shill or a party stooge. But he's fighting Trump, and you can appreciate that, right? But to think like, who do I truly like right now? If he stays strong, I really want Bernie Sanders to run again. We need the right person, because it's going to be a staged election. I was watching. I think her name is Ann Applebaum last night, and she was talking about, like, without a doubt, they're gonna do everything they can to assure their victory, and not only the midterms, but in the 2028 election as well. So we've got to have the right person, and we've got to buckle up, and we've got to have watchdogs everywhere.
January 6th. That's probably a pretty powerful. I could probably have said to him, like, were those women who were involved in January 6th that you put on your bus, on your 6 Turning Point USA buses to go and storm the Capitol, were they happy doing that? Right? But then I feel like he would get into, was it an insurrection, was it not? And I wasn't particularly interested in talking about whether or not it was an insurrection. So instead I just said, where's this data? You weirdo.
Did you do all that on the spot? Like, did you think, I could go with this angle, and then you quickly went, I'm not going to?
Yeah.
How do you do that so quickly? Like, what's going on here?
And that's the difference. Like, I would have went, bam, January 6th, right? Like, but she was able to see that road to its conclusion. It's fucking brilliant. And you are absolutely right, Kent Hovind, CPA. She cooked him. Sister was cooking.
How do you pick it up, decide... There's the pros. There's
and we need this. We need our smartest brothers and sisters. We need our most relatable brothers and sisters. We need our brothers and sisters that don't agree with everything that we think. We need all of our brothers and sisters that are going to be against fascism. But especially we need our academics. We need our academics to come out and start speaking, to really start speaking. Educating. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to explain what fascism is to people that should know what it is. And it's apparent now. There's no question now. But there's no question if you use definitions, if you use meaning, what is a thing, right?
Are you struggling in your calculus class?
Maybe I'm pausing it too long. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I don't know. It's like every time I unpause it now, it's like freaking ad. All right. All right. We got about 14 minutes left. I've been streaming a while. I think it's time to take a break. I probably will be having some kind of room, 4 to 8, 5 to 8, 5 to 9. 9 would be my caught off, because I'm like 3 hours past my bedtime at that point. But I work a day and then I'm off a day, so I should be fine. Answer
this, because I never have any idea of how to answer these types of questions. Potentially it's just a lot of practice, because I've debated a lot in the past, and I know I like to think that I'm not particularly arrogant, so I know my own limits and I know where I would want to take a conversation. Charlie is really good at knowing where he wants to take a conversation, and that's a talent that he definitely has, which is like, let's think really quickly about what pivot I want to take so that I can stay on track with what I want to do. And if I think, for example, if I were to start playing hermeneutics with Charlie Kirk, that's the one thing he could win me on. Right. I think the one thing that Charlie Kirk would win against me with would be the evangelical stuff, because at his core, he's a proselytizer. He's someone who, if he was an ordinary guy, he'd knock on doors and ask if we want to hear about God. And like, I'm not someone who knows the Bible cover to cover the same way that he would.
Know your weaknesses, and that's something that I failed at utterly for so long. Is, I can see a lot of my weaknesses, but then in arrogance, I refuse to see some of them, right? And I think that's kind of like the normal human experience. And the fact that she can see that, like, hey, I'm not very knowledgeable about the Bible, so if it's going to go down that evangelical road, I'm not really going to be able to go there. And that's, that was the mistake that I had made with Matt Powell, because at that point, the first time I talked to Matt Powell, well, it had been 20 years, not quite that long. It had probably been at least a good decade since I had picked up a Bible and read anything from it, right? Like, I just kind of walked in cold, because he made some silly comment about atheists and video games, and everybody was talking about the hateful Matt Powell. I lived in Michigan. I had the chance to meet him, and probably should have actually knocked the dust off my Bible before walking into that conversation, for sure. Right. So to be able to recognize your own weaknesses, and understand, I don't want to go down that road because he's going to be able to shine. And that's not what we're here for as the next generation of academia. We're here to crush bad ideas. So just fucking kudos to her.
It is like, I've experienced it myself, where it's a combination of preparation and intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And the intuition part is like, some people think that you've either got it or you haven't, whereas my experience is no, you can work on that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're on that spot, like the intuition might think, nope, if I go there, I'm stepping into the evangelical stuff and he may have a better standing. So I can just go with this other pivot instead where I don't have that problem. But it was sharp. It was very quick. It was just, you nailed it, made everyone laugh. And this is where, going back to like my style, it was humiliating for him. So one of the reasons that it has went viral is it was so effective. But you also did it in a way, now that I think about it, where you didn't come across as a bitch, right? You just did it as like, what are you on about kind of thing, which is a different framing, but it allows you to have the same hit. So yeah, that's interesting to hear the way that you were thinking at that moment. There was one point where he mentioned something that you weren't prepared for. I think it was something along the lines of, the data shows that women who are married and have children, they're the happiest in the world. And you said, I don't know about that data, I need to look into it. And he immediately capitalized on your humility and was like, no, every study shows it. You would agree objectively that every study shows it. Did his eagerness to exploit your intellectual honesty surprise you at all?
No, of course not. I think it's interesting because this only works for someone if they can't.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, Brady. So the first time I talked to him, it was for his movie Science Falsely So Called. So I was very naive, very, very green, very, very green. And we'll come up here for now. It's been a while since I told this story. You can't find it anymore outside. I do have my footage that I was able to have, and it's a long story. I'll try to make it brief. It's on the channel. You can find it on my channel. If you scroll down, it's on there. It's one of the few things I left on there when I blocked everything. There's a few streams that I'm actually gonna take off the channel, and I'm going to start slowly implementing some of the old stuff, and then I'm going to delete the rest, because right now everything's just blocked. I'm going to delete the rest of it, and I'm going to really hope once I do that I can start talking to YouTube about maybe repairing this channel before I try to start a new channel. In hopes that it's not too late for that. So to make a long story short, Matt Powell, and I've come to realize, like, in my drunkenness, I made a lot of assumptions about the dishonesty of Matt Powell. I think that my first interaction with him was definitely dishonest, and that was the 6. It was probably anywhere from 4.5 to 6 hours that we were together at the Library of Michigan, and I went into it with the sole purpose of, like, really just finding out, like, what kind of Christian he was, because he was making, like, these really outrageous claims about, like, atheism and video games, and people were Friendly Atheist was covering them. This was, like, when people were first finding out about Matt Powell, like, first finding out about this dude, and he was saying, like, really crazy shit unabashedly. I really wanted to like just figure out, because he's from my state, like, what is this Christianity? Because I didn't know it, and I didn't realize that this Christianity was in my state. I was very familiar with Seventh-day Adventist here and Baptist here, and even Scientologists here, and Muslims here, but never the Matt Powells of the world. My Baptist family, I would consider them fundamentalist evangelicals, but I do not consider them anywhere near a Matt Powell of the world. You know what I'm saying? So I was curious about it, and I was very naive and I was very green. So I went in with a little camera that I had that I was using back then. It was a cheap little Sony camera that cost me like $100. And I was very trusting. So I get to the Library of Congress. I'm going to have this conversation with Matt Powell. He meets me outside with another dude filming. And right from the get, it's like he wants his guy to film. He's going to send me the stuff. He doesn't really want me to film. I'm like, no, I'm going to be filming on my camera here. So I would get my camera. Well, first, just to get into the Library of Congress, it was very shady. He was like, we're going to try to film up here, and then we're going to try to film over here. And he actually had about 8 or 9 people already inside the Library of Congress, kind of like staking it out. And I'm like, what is going on here? So about 10 minutes into our interview inside, because we started outside with the questions that he had proposed to me in an email, and we had that conversation. He didn't use any of that. That's not anything that he used in his movie, any of those questions. And then we went inside, and it started in this place, and he didn't feel quite comfortable there, so he would move it to another place. And finally, we settled in this like lobby area on the 2nd level. Maybe it was even the 3rd level. And every time we're going to a new location, a new person is popping out, right? Like a new kid, basically, 19, 20-year-old kid. And it was super fucking weird. And I'm like, what is going on here? Finally, the people from the Library of Congress come, and they're like, what are you doing? You have to have permission to film here. Right? And I'm like, this dude didn't even ask permission. Right? Like, I'm like, it just blew my fucking mind. So finally, Matt Powell does Matt Powell, and he convinces them to let him film there somehow, some way. I can't explain it outside of it was like a hand of God act, and that's a fucking metaphor, yo. And we are completely sidetracked from finishing this stream, but this is a story worth retelling, I think. And so they finally let us, and that's where we end up in front of the big ass fucking thing on the wall that's in the video. So I set up my camera. As soon as we're sitting down and we're starting to talk, all of a sudden my camera, as soon as I'm engaging with Matt Powell and I'm not really looking at my camera, and again, there's people everywhere. Even his dad shows up there, right? Like, everybody's there. He's got a crew, a posse. Matt Powell don't travel alone. He did once, the 3rd or 4th time we met. And so magically, my camera would stop working. I don't know how to explain it outside of the fact that my camera never stopped working, and there were people there to push buttons, right, to make sure it stopped working. Fortunately, I understood my camera. I understood, like, especially during the first break, like, oh shit, I didn't get any of that. So I started using my phone. And the conversation that's on my channel is the phone. Now, I think I missed a segment with my phone. I think I thought it was recording. I actually show the moment when Matt Powell realizes I've been recording the whole thing, because he was going to send me the butchered version that he put in his movie, right? But I got probably 75% of the conversation recorded on my phone. It's kind of awkward at points. But yeah, that's my first experience with Matt Powell. I've had quite a few.
Think on their feet. So, for example, I didn't know what the data looked like in detail. I'd actually done a bit of research beforehand, but I wasn't going to spend a few hours trolling the internet. So I saw a few different things that seemed inconclusive. Some of them were like unmarried women over 60 are like the happiest people ever, and they have the most sex, and they're like having the best time of their lives, and they're the richest. Other studies were saying what Charlie was like purported to call objective. So.
And actually, now that I think about it, that was my second interaction with Matt Powell for that movie. Our first one, we had met at a coffee shop, and I didn't go hard at his homophobia, and it was a big, like, it it was a big thing. And I think it was because I really didn't quite understand it, because he hit me with it in that first interaction, and to me, I wasn't aware of that side of him, so it kind of surprised me. So the whole reason I agreed to do his movie was so I could confront him on his homosexuality, which I'm gonna find the cut version of that specific part, because mission successful, and I'm gonna make sure I am gonna be restoring a lot of that old content, especially my edited videos, to the channel. I just gotta do it and stop talking about it.
I wasn't necessarily gonna go there and talk about the data, because I also suspected he didn't particularly know about like the methodology behind these studies. He was just cherry picking a little bit himself. Exactly. I didn't want to return with, well, I'm going to cherry pick my own data. Instead, I'll think, okay, what's the crux of this? Probably that self-reported happiness is the most flawed way to do any kind of survey, and that you need to look at other metrics when you measure quality of life.
When Charlie kept bringing up the happiness data and he kept running with it, rather than meeting him on the data, because you said, well, not prepared, you actually said, Charlie,
hey, stop playing with your fanny pack.
Man, I'll be double clicking my button too much, and it's not me like not hitting mute. It's me hitting mute twice. So that can't be a new problem. I got to get used to the microphone. I've had this microphone for like over a year now. I've only used it like 6 times now, right? Like I'm not used to the mute button on the microphone.
If you did, you'd allow gay people to just live their damn lives.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making.
And essentially what you were running there is a reductio on his emphasis on happiness. You were basically saying you don't care about happiness. If you did, this would be a conclusion, but you don't have this. So you're like reversing the logic to show that he doesn't care about it. This is something that I noticed a lot with your debate technique, at least in that style. You kept using a reductio. Is it one of your favorite methods? Is it something that you use specifically against Charlie? Talk me about that method.
Yeah, it is one of my absolute favorite things, because it allows you to easily bring in humor into a subject. Even if you don't necessarily have a joke, even if you're not necessarily a funny person, sometimes conclusions are funny enough that you can get some laughs and you can entertain people, but also at the same time it's quite rigorous in its logic. So it's something, it's not particularly unique to my debate with Charlie.
You're saying that it's one, effective because you're able to very quickly just show that their methodology is not working or they're not being consistent. Mm-hmm. And 2, you can do it through the vehicle of humor, which means that you ingratiate yourself with the crowd, and actually it can serve that, like, maybe even like that humiliating aspect that's a part of these kinds of debates, without doing it from from a position of like attacking him. It's rather just really specifically on the argument. When Charlie asked about women getting married and having children, and he was driving the conversation there, and he asked you a question about it, this was the first time that you didn't actually answer him, but you asked him a question.
Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
I'm wondering, was that a conscious decision that you decided at that point, actually, rather than meeting him where he's at, which is what I've done throughout the entire discussion, I am actually going to ask him a question?
Yeah, it's because he told me to put down my phone. So I put down my phone and asked him a question instead, you know? I think that immediately before I asked him that question, he said, actually engage and don't look at your phone and basically debate me properly. So I looked up from my phone and I asked that question organically, and I said, okay, I'll do exactly the same thing as you're doing so you can't get pissed off at me anymore, since we're mirroring one another's actions like almost perfectly.
One of the reasons he asks questions, I think, is that whenever you put him on the back foot, he doesn't want that. He wants you to be the person that's asking it. So you're saying that as soon as he got you to put your phone down, because you couldn't access the data, to be able to go, I'll meet you where you're at, here's what I've got. you instead were just like, I'll ask you a question then.
I mean, it wasn't quite that, oh, now I could no longer see my data. It was more so optically, I knew that he was going to go down that path of, the only reason she's a good debater is because she has her phone, and not because she's there with the arguments, not because she can meet me on the philosophy, not because she's there with the data sets in her head as well. So my notes look like bookmarks that tell me what I'm going to say, tell me what I'm supposed to say so I don't lose track. And because I was so far into this debate, and because he'd now pointed out, oh, you're just there on your phone to attempt to delegitimize me, I thought I have to now engage with him in the exact same way that he's engaging with me, so that I can make the point.
An extension of that is, what do you make of the fact that they...
Bravo. Bravo. I mean, fucking A. That's how you do it, right? That's how you do it. And you do it with grace, and you do it with intelligence, and you do it with truth in academia. You do it because you have done it a million times. It's not just here, it's muscle memory at this point. And damn, she's so young to be there, right? She is so young to be there. And that is fucking brilliant. And that's what we need. That's the glimmer of hope, y'all. It's the glimmer of hope. I think that there's a lot of people out there that even just despite taking away their Medicaid and their food stamps, and now it's going to be, people are going to start losing their jobs. People are not going to be able to afford to eat. Take away all of that. I do still think that there's Trumpers out there that are looking around and saying, wait a minute. Not many of them, unfortunately, but I think that they're out there and they're looking around. They're like, what the fuck? They're just too scared to say anything. I believe that. I have to believe that.
They attack people that come with notes. It's a really peculiar thing from my point of view, but what do you make of that? Is that a legit move?
Yeah, I only have a few, Brady. Up again. Now I blocked everything. I've been streaming for years and years. Unfortunately, I got drunk and I ruined this channel. Well, and again, there I go saying it again. But no, I mean, a lot of factors went into the ruination of this channel. But eventually I'm going to put everything back up. I might even start doing it today to keep me away from my video games. So I do have a room tonight. I might just start making a playlist and adding to that playlist. I don't know. I might have to fix the order later, but just get a lot of the old edited content, some of the better live streams I had done through the years. Eventually will be back on the channel because I have over in all like 3,000.
Like, what does it do in terms of optics?
I think it partly speaks to the age demographic of who's engaging with the content. So, for example, a lot of people who are a little bit older don't really see notes on a phone as the same as having notes in a notebook. So if I was a bit more optically, if I had thought a little bit more strategically about the phone thing and just printed out an A4 sheet of notes, no one would probably have mentioned it. Whereas, because I have a phone, people think, oh, she has the world at her fingertips, and therefore anyone could win with a phone because it's this mystical thing. But it's like, if you're like 60 years old and you don't quite know how to use a smartphone and you just see your kids doing all this crazy stuff, like, you're probably going to overestimate its capabilities.
So really, the tip there is, after you got your notes, just print them, because it inoculates yourself from older demographics thinking that actually you're just, I don't know, using ChatGPT or something. When it's like, no, I've got notes. That's what they're for. It's just we use phones because we're not 60. So
print them out.
Charlie often speaks about God.
Yeah, and that's that great point. Is like a lot of people aren't bad faith when they think that you're on your phone and you're just like somehow telepathically Googling everything the opponent is saying, right? For young people, I know because I'm the father of a 15-year-old daughter, their entire lives have been electronics. It's not been, like my entire life or a good chunk of my life. Like even now, I've went completely electronic. I don't handwrite much anymore. But when I first started writing, everything was handwriting and typewriter, so it's just a different world. And people, when they're in their 60s and 70s, they don't quite understand. No, that's just her notebook in her hand, right? Those are just her notes. And her point, like, just take that extra step and print out your notes, because that way a lot more people just see, oh, they're just notes and not, oh, she's telepathically communicating with her phone, which for some reason they think is possible. So, unless they think she's like, which they don't even do it well in what's that Scorsese movie with Leonardo and Mark Wahlberg and Jack Nicholson. Oh, fuck. It's escaping my name, my brain. Yeah, my brain ain't firing. I think I'm still a little sick.
And he speaks about how women have a role to fill. So it's like very much like this is what you're meant to do with your life. What is your response to argument?
Departed. When they're in the scene and everybody's like, twiddling their phones, not looking at it and shit.
That natural roles should be socially enforced.
Yeah, I mean, the naturalistic fallacy is one of my favorites to
that's my
because it's
my
also
nightmare.
One of the most stupid and
atheists.
easy things, right? Like some fallacies are intelligent, some things that people say are really clever, but the naturalistic fallacy is just super easy to deconstruct, which is you always have to reckon with the missing premise within that argument. Why is it that a natural thing should be mapped onto a social thing? The ought claim is never really justified. But the other thing is, there are two avenues you can take it, depending on who you're engaging with. So, for example, with Charlie Kirk, I would probably just ask him to justify the ought claim. But if I'm having an intellectual discussion with someone who really strongly believes in patriarchy and the basis of some kind of biological thing, I would just ask them some fun questions, like why is it that gorillas have more sexual dimorphism than humans, but they've not done patriarchy half as well as we have? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the...
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before. Your all-in-one writing essential.
Hate it.
That Hume's razor, I forget what it's called, guillotine, Hume's guillotine, right? You can just say, is premise, you don't get your ought. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about the theological angle is they kind of do, if you buy the background, right? Because under their rubric, it really is the case that we're made with certain purpose. So they have the ought from the very beginning. So they're deriving an ought from an ought is the way that they look at it, which means the conversation is much more difficult to be able to work with. So when you are talking with religious people and they have already got that ought in place, they think there is things that, say, men are meant to be or meant to be doing, or women are meant to be or meant to be doing. How do you navigate that space? How do you talk with those people?
Well, that's when you stop speaking to them and you speak to their audience through them. So, for example, I can never communicate to someone who's religious in that moment. Let's say I've got 10 minutes with Charlie. Am I going to turn him atheist? Probably not. Would I even turn him slightly more of a liberal Christian? No, I wouldn't. That's when you start speaking to your audience. You say, there's going to be atheists in this audience, and what they believe is in defining their own purpose. Maybe they're a fan of enlightenment, rationality kind of stuff. Maybe they have their own ethical framework and they don't believe morality comes from God. You believe morality comes from God. That means that you justify women's roles in society based on the fact that they're following God's plan. How are people in the audience now going to justify that if they don't believe in God? Because most of the people who are patriarchy enjoyers and also atheists don't necessarily realize that they're using an ought claim that comes from religion when they're prescribing people these types of roles.
Oh, that's it's almost like a dividing element. Mm-hmm. You can illustrate to people that you may be on his side, but you don't have the crucial premise that he has. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Mehdi Hassan's mentioned this as a tactic as well. You separate the person from their audience.
Yeah,
and it sounds like that's
finally reaching the end. This was such a great conversation, right? And this is a great thing that I hope that he does with other people that are professional debaters that are going out and hopefully there'll be more and more, but there are people stepping to the plate and breaking it down and showing you how they're doing it, showing you what they're thinking as they're doing it. That is a great benefit to not only people like me who aspire to represent these ideals better, but people that have never been able to hear this before and now can hear it in a very accurate way, right? In a way that they can understand, right? That's very easy to understand. Hey, look at what you're saying. Where does your alt claim come from? Does it come from a place that you do not agree with, that you don't, that doesn't really compute and is now become logical inconsistency, right? It's a very brilliant tactic, and these people are what's needed. these people that can really just be calm in the moment, see the road ahead, and make the right decisions. I wish I was one of those people. I used to think of myself as one of those people. And it's kind of a freeing thing to realize what you really are, right? Like, you can be free inside of that. You don't have to carry that baggage with you. That failure I always talk about, I can only feel that way because my expectations were too high, right? Know thyself. Know thyself.
That's what you're essentially recommending there. So zooming out to like the broader conversation that's happening, we have this growing distrust of particularly social sciences, and it's coming from the right, of course. It's particularly sociology and gender. They're the ones that are being attacked. How do you defend their validity in this day and age with this level of optics?
I would say that Charlie Kirk, Jordan Peterson, and many other far-right or right-wing figureheads are social scientists who want to co-opt the discipline for themselves and push out people who disagree with them in any capacity. So, for example...
Hi, Mark Barden at Sandy Hook Promise here.
So infuriating. And it's just obnoxious, YouTube. That's just obnoxious. Like, why you got to be that way? Just petty. You're petty, YouTube. You're just petty. It's uncalled for. I know you want more of this poor man's money, but it's just too much, right? Like, you're just going too far. I'll give you my money. Chill out, bro. Wait your turn. Like, fuck's sake.
Charlie Kirk and others have definitions of gender and how different people should be interacting with each other, what society should look like, how people behave socially, and what that means. That's sociology. They're doing sociology, and they don't want me to do sociology. So they're telling me sociology isn't real and that gender studies is a bullshit degree, while they're at home reading through their gender studies notes and they're looking over their sociology data set, they're reading Durkheim. I'm telling you, these people are not shying away from the sociological canon, especially if they're denigrating it in public, because they don't want the left to have any kind of ownership over it anymore, as they once potentially did.
Do you think there's an angle of maybe like changing our language up so we can always go, oh, you're using biblical sociology? Because then you're like forcing that language on them. And if anyone, like, as soon as you said that, I was thinking, yeah, of course that's what they're doing. Yeah. It's full on sociology, and it's extremely prescriptive rather than descriptive. Yeah. Like, do you feel like tactics like that may be something we want to co-op?
Yeah, and potentially just go even subtler.
So, and here she's just like, she's describing their fascism over ideas is how I want to put it, right? Like, while they disclaim this science, they are this science. They just refuse to hear any refutation to their false science. So, to the way they do that science, right? So, they must get rid of that refutation as opposed to fix themselves, right? So, they must deny the science so they can own the science. And that's just a really, really good observation.
By just saying, okay, well, your sociological framework states this, my sociological framework illustrates this, now you can defend your sociological framework. Is that coming from Durkheim? Is that coming from,
just keep using it in the phrasing, because
exactly,
they can't fight against it, and they can't tackle you it, because the second they mention it, well, you win, because it is sociology.
Because they are doing it. I can't.
And if they don't, you just get to keep. Okay, yeah. Final question. When it comes to progressive content creators, such as myself, such as yourself, link below, by the way, you can find Tilly's YouTube channel, TikTok, etc. What is the biggest change that we need to make?
I think about this all the time. I think one of the biggest changes we need to make is to recognise that there's not one way to do politics.
I've been doing that a lot.
Most people on the left are probably correct about the way that they're doing it. So, for example, you'll have a lot of people on the left who will say, only protesting is going to get us somewhere. And then you'll have people who are in the online debate space and say, only engaging with these ideas in the debate space is going to do something. And then you might have people who are closer to the centre, or you have Democrats in the US who will say, voting is the way to do it. And actually, it's all of that, right? It is all of it. It is joining a union. It is being active in your community. It's doing mutual aid. It's debating online. It's establishing left-wing spaces for yourself. It's also establishing left-wing spaces within right-wing communities at the same time. Like, the way to do politics is something that is, it's a huge kind of framework, and you don't have to restrict yourself to one faction of individuals who believe that this is the correct way to do politics. I think you're a really good example of this, because you speak on a lot of the stuff that you do is to do with atheism and breaking out from religion, and I think that's one of many really important ways that people on the left can do politics when, for example, separating religious fundamentalism from other types of religion and educating people on that.
Tilly Middlehurst, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming down. Really looking forward to seeing where.
And that's the glimmer of hope this morning, right? Like, we've lost some battles. I think there's no denying that. When it comes to like the Democratic Party in America, they've lost the people, and that's why we are where we are. But it's gonna get real fast. Like I said, I expect today to be a very crazy day. A lot of things are going to be said today, I think. Maybe they'll hold off till tomorrow, but I think today's going to be nuts. I think we'll probably have some shit to talk about later. So hopefully people will come join me. But, we do have to come together, right? And there's a lot of legitimate disagreements within the left, within the Democratic Party in America right now, and they're very legitimate. I myself am I'm very pro-Palestine. I'm not anti-Israel. I want Israel to be able to live peacefully alongside their neighbors. But I'm pro-Palestine and I'm anti-genocide. And we have to understand that we can't. There's nothing we can do about that now. You're not going to pressure Trump and this admin into anything that they don't want to do. We have to come together. We have to put that aside until we can defeat fascism. And all of our grievances with each other and our initial reaction or inclination to cancel those or push away those that don't have the same politics as us, but are as repelled by the fascism as much as we are. And with this, I'm talking like what they would call rhino Republicans. And it pains me to say this because I think it was that connection to, and let's not call them moderate Republicans because they're not. They're far-right Republicans. They're not nearly as far-right as Trump and Trumpism, but they're still far-right Republicans, but they're anti-fascist, pro-corporate, pro-war. And we really have to come together. Now. And we can't do it forcefully or through acts of cancellation. We have to do it with our First Amendment rights. And it could be very painful. It would be nice if the president's party would hold him responsible, but now I fear they have every excuse they need to expand the ICE operation to all the people they really want to expand it to. So, buckle up, Buttercup. We have our hope, but there's also reality. And I think it starts smacking us today. So, I'm going to have to think about a room. Like, maybe there won't be a room. I'm going to probably go ahead and set up a room, but I might decide against it depending on how the day plays out. We shall see. We shall see. All right. I'm gonna probably turn off this coffee machine, which it's turned off itself, or maybe turn it back on if I want another cup. I might start going through some of my old catalog. Maybe I do have to want to catch a bit of this playback. I don't think I'm gonna sit back and watch this whole stream like I've been doing, because I'm really, I want to see if, lag, vocals, all of that. So you guys try to have a good day. Hopefully I'm not right about what today is going to be. I haven't said what it's going to be. I've implied how I feel about what today's going to be. We shall see. Y'all have a good one.